All right. Welcome, everybody. My chair is falling. Up, chair. Up. Okay. Let's try that again. Happy Thursday. My week of not really organizing myself continues, but I'm actually finally doing something that's timely. Very timely, I presume, if you end up watching or listening to this in the near future. This is the game preview document for Dolmenwood, which I believe I discovered yesterday is coming live to Kickstarter as I'm recording this in less than a month, right? I think the beginning of August. And they released through Exalted Funeral a free PDF game preview that you could pick up. Hey, Ian. Hey, Frederick. So I thought we should go through this bad boy. I've been exposed to Dolmenwood a little bit just through Winter's Daughter and Hole in the Oak, but I'm coming at it mostly from an outside perspective. Other than reading through those two adventures, I don't really have a lot of knowledge about it, so I'm interested. It's subtitled Adventure in Peril in Fairy Tale Woods, which makes sense. This is version 1.0. I don't know if they're going to release multiple versions between now and the Kickstarter. Also get the website, dolmenwood.com. It's a pretty sizable document. It looks like it's at least 70-ish pages. We've got a section on Welcome to Dolmenwood, then on characters and magic, on equipment, etc., then on adventuring, and then secrets of the Dolmenwood. I'm guessing this would be more setting, because it seems like these first few are maybe where they're putting in mechanics. Then we get setting information, and then a section on monsters. Now, if I recall, if I'm understanding correctly, this is not just a settings document, it is a full role-playing game. I'm presuming it's going to be based pretty heavily on old school essentials, but I guess we'll see. I don't know. Ian says that they gave it a glance through yesterday. It's much more interesting than he expected. That's good to hear. Midderland suggested using Dolmenwood for Ireland. Okay. Some interconnectivity between some systems. Well, let's just get to it. We do have a little bit of an Appendix N here, inspirational media. Let's see. And books. The Charwoman's Shadow. Fellowship of the Ring. Goblin Market. Gormenghast. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. The King of Elfland's Daughter. Krabat. The Ladies of Grâce à Dieu, Lud in the Mist, Leoness Trilogy, Mio, My Son, On Fairy Stories, Smith of Wit and Major, Stardust, and The White People. So some really classic stuff in there. Obviously, Tolkien makes a couple of appearances, Lord Dunsany. What else do we have there? Mervyn Peake, Jack Vance, Arthur Machen. Good stuff. Films, The Green Knight. I really enjoyed The Green Knight. I didn't hear really too many people talking about it. I really liked it. Labyrinth, Legend, Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, and The Wicker Man. I'm hoping this is a reference to the original Wicker Man and not the Nick Cage Wicker Man. And then in terms of television, also mentioning the Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell BBC series, Over the Garden Wall, and Twin Peaks. Well, that's an interesting reference, Twin Peaks. Part 1, Welcome to Dolmenwood. Dolmenwood encompasses a swath of tangled woods, fungus-encrusted glades, and fetid marsh on the wild borders of civilization. In this beguiling realm, the magic and otherworldly are always close at hand. Standing stones loom in hallowed glades, graven with sigils of deep magic. Ley lines pulse within the earth, their potent arcane energy tapped by greedy sorcerers. Secret doorways allow passage to the perilous realm of fairy, for those charmed or blessed by the lords of Elfland. Step then, bold and foolhardy adventurer, into the hoary forest realm of Dolmenwood, and beware, for little here is as it seems. So there's a couple things to note, just in case it's not obvious. I don't have any previous history with this book. I downloaded it 5 minutes ago, or a couple minutes before the stream went live, and I have no connection at all to Necrotic Gnome or anything like that. So Take my opinions for what you will. Insert as many grains of salt as you feel necessary, so on and so forth. There's just one person reading it, and then presumably, I suppose, giving some analysis that you could take or leave. Tried 245 Trioxin says that Dolmenwood became standalone because of the OGL stuff. Aha, okay. All right. But I mean, it's not like it's not as if he is stopping OSE. But I guess OSE is, I don't know how if he intends to untangle OSE from OGL or what the situation is. But I guess that makes sense. Okay, so there we have our little welcome message. That's good. A nice intro. I like it. About Dolmenwood. Should I zoom in on these pages? It's a little bit small for me, even with my glasses on. I feel like if you want to, if it's important to you to be able to read this on the screen as opposed to downloading the PDF yourself, let me know. I'm going to try to keep it like this so I can see. It's nice to see the spreads, and it uses more of our widescreen aspect ratio, but I will keep one eye to the chat in terms of if I should zoom in on individual pages and so on. But I'm gonna start with this. So this is part 1. Welcome to Dolmenwood. About Dolmenwood, introducing the Dolmenwood tabletop role-playing game. And I think we're gonna get a couple more instances of me saying Dolmenwood in the next minute. So just if there's a Dolmenwood mentioning drinking game, start taking drinks now. Dolmenwood is a fantasy adventure game set in a lavishly detailed world inspired by the fairy tales and eerie folklore of the British Isles. Like traditional fairy tales, Dolmenwood blends the dark and whimsical, the wondrous and weird. Players journey through tangled woods and mossy bowers, forage for magical mushrooms and herbs, discover rune-carved standing stones and hidden fairy roads, venture into fungal grottos and forsaken ruins, battle oozing monstrosities, haggle with goblin merchants, and drink tea with fairies. Streamlined rules and helpful introductory materials guide novice players, while unique new magic and monsters bring a fresh sense of the unknown to veteran role players. Whew. Okay, and then just a note, it is super hot here in New York City today, and I have put on the air conditioning for my comfort. Otherwise, I would be melting into a puddle as I do this. Because of that, I don't know if you can hear it or not, but you might hear a slight buzzing, humming. That's the air conditioner over on the other side of the room. So I apologize for that if there is any of that background, either just in the overall audio or when I'm speaking, because I know I have noise gates and things like that. But if it creeps in here and there, I apologize for any lack of audio fidelity. All right. So now on to the books. We're kickstarting the 3 Dolmenwood core books, plus a range of extras. The Dolmenwood Player's Book contains the complete game rules, plus all character options. The Dolmenwood Campaign Book and Dolmenwood Monster Book present a detailed campaign setting and bestiary ready for years of adventure. And just one more note, if you are playing the Dolmenwood drinking game, do not blame me for your blood alcohol levels shooting to astronomical levels. Can't help it, but he's saying Dolmenwood a lot right now. Pete Giant, all good on the sound. Great. Characters. Players may be proud. Goat-headed Breggle, a starry-eyed elf stepped straight from fairy, a tricksome Grimalkin cat fairy, a worldly or hapless human, a fungus-riddled mossling, or a capricious bat-faced woodgrue. Okay. I don't know what most of those mean, but sure. Choose from 9 classes: the ardent cleric, willful enchanter, dashing fighter, jolly friar, stealthy hunter, haughty knight, enigmatic magician, charming minstrel, or wily thief. So we've got clerics, enchanters. It'll be interesting to see. So we have magicians and enchanters. We have fighters and knights. We have clerics and friars. We've got magicians or minstrels and thieves. So there's some interesting. I'm curious at how much overlap there's going to be between those classes, if there is any sort of dedicated niches to them, and will there be any niche protection there? So, but I like the very flavorful in terms of the setting, because those feel like they're coming right out of sort of jolly old England, Arthurian fairyland. Open sandbox world. Simple, flavorful rules for travel, exploration, and camping lead characters on adventures across the tangled expanse of the Dolmenwood map. Players can explore 200 map hexes, visit 12 detailed settlements, meet over 280 NPCs, and meddle with the schemes of 7 major factions: the Cold Prince, the Droon, the Human Nobility, the Longhorn Nobility, the Pluralitine Church, and the Witches. Familiar, streamlined rules. Dolmenwood uses the acclaimed Old School Essentials rule system, streamlined, customized, and expanded for the setting. Anyone who's played a game with 6 ability scores, classes, hit points, and armor class, and saving throws can pick up Dolmenwood in no time. I feel like this is going to seem kind of, I don't want to be mean, but I feel like saying the acclaimed Old School acclaimed Old School Essentials rule system. I mean, I guess it is acclaimed, but I feel like it's paint. I don't know. I don't want to be inhospitable. I don't want to be inhospitable. It's fine. Yes, it is. It is definitely an acclaimed rule system. I suppose I cannot argue with that. Okay, designed for play. Modern formatting and layout make the game easy to learn and a breeze to reference during play. Clear procedures for travel, camping, settlements, dungeons, encounters, and combat make running the game smooth and easy. PDFs are enhanced with clickable hex maps and text hyperlinks for instant navigation. So that's going to be nice. I guess just to flesh out my thought. The only reason why I don't say grimace a little bit at the acclaimed Old School Essentials rule system is because Old School Essentials didn't invent that rule system. That rule system is BX that they presented in a novel way. And just, I get a little bit, and I mean nothing against, I don't want to throw any shade against anybody, but it just felt a little bit like it feels like it, just the way it's stated, puts a little bit of the, credit for creation onto Old School Essentials, and they didn't create it. I don't know. I'm probably being too picky and grumpy. That's okay. I do enjoy what Old School Essentials has done, and I really appreciate how it's brought the original system, BX, kind of into a very prominent place. So all credit to them. In this preview PDF, this PDF contains a sample of material from each of the 3 Dolmenwood core books: the Dolmenwood Player's Book, the Dolmenwood Campaign Book, and the Dolmenwood Monster Book. Ian says, arguably presentation is a huge part of the game, but I see where you're coming from. Yeah, sure. I think though that yes, I mean it's a complicated subject, right? And I don't want to go down in rabbit holes. And I don't even have I have no hard and fast philosophy. But if I took somebody's manuscript, let's say, that was scribbled in pen and not very clearly needed and had sort of notes, sort of like, I guess to put an example, right? Christopher Tolkien took a lot of his father's materials and reorganized them and presented them in all these follow-up books, starting with the Silmarillion and on to all these books that have come out. Now, Christopher Tolkien should and I think does get a lot of credit for doing a lot of the research, organization, everything. But I don't think he would ever claim sort of creative ownership over that material. It was his father's, and he's trying to sort it out. In the same way, I think that Old School Essentials is like that caretaking, organizing force that's helped in some ways, because some stuff is lost in their translation. Their translation isn't perfect, much like Christopher Tolkien's isn't perfect. There are a lot of flaws with the Silmarillion because of choices Christopher Tolkien made, whatever. But in that kind of caretaking aspect, and just the way when I read them saying like the acclaimed rule system, I just feel like, well, sure, but I don't look. This is a product that is meant to bolster up their product. So I don't expect them to put all kinds of asterisks and CBX, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, just it hit my funny bone, I guess, or my thing. Again, I'm not trying to give anybody shade. I don't think anything nefarious is going on. And Old School Essentials has done a lot of good for, I think, for BX and OSR in general in gaming. So, I'm not trying to be, I assume I'm just being nitpicky. Grumpy Old Man. Oh, and this is sort of old, almost finished. What is that? A kind of cappuccino, flat white for the working man. And then I've got some glass of water in reserve here. Peak Giant says, in a preview of a game, there's less space to place lineage of a game. I'm certain in the full game, the lineage will be shown. It may be. I'm not trying to say anything negative. It's not super important, right? I get it. You know, it would be nice, but this kind of falls under the line of, you know, what do you owe those folks, or if anything, you know? So, and I think everyone's going to feel differently. All right, well, let's get back to it, because I don't want to get sidetracked on that, because it's not really a big deal. So let's see. Part 1, welcome to Dolmenwood. A quick introduction to the flavor, folk, and factions of Dolmenwood. I forgot, actually, that's 2 Dolmenwoods. If you're playing the drinking game, I missed one. Along with a player's map of the wood showing commonly known locations of fact and folklore. Part 2, characters. An example playable kindred, capital K kindred, the goat-headed Breggle, and 2 example classes, the Cleric and the Enchanter. The complete game features 6 kindreds and 9 classes, along with 300 names, 160 backgrounds, 300 trinkets, and 576 quirky characteristics. I wonder how you get to 576. Is there a die? Would that be a D666 or something? How do you get to 576? If anybody knows the math or whatnot on that one, or what die types would get to that number, let me know. Kindred class archetypes are also provided for players who prefer to simply play an elf, for example, rather than an elf thief or elf magician. So it looks like we're going to get some species as class type options if you want them, which is cool. Part 3, magic. The full rules for fairy and holy magic, along with a selection of fairy glamours and rank 1 holy spells. The complete game features 4 types of magic: arcane magic, fairy magic, holy magic, and mossling knacks, with a total of 168 spells and magical effects. Part 4, equipment, services, and animals. The complete selection of hounds and pipe leaves, along with the full rules for hiring and running retainers, NPCs that accompany players on their adventures into the unknown. The complete game features 65 items of adventuring gear, 20 weapons, 6 types of armor, 6 types of horses, 8 vehicles, 8 types of dogs, lodgings of 3 quality levels, 40 tavern dishes, 30 beverages, 20 pipe leaves, 20 herbs and fungi, and a range of specialist services, all dripping with Dolmenwood flavor. Whew. Ian says, oh, that's just a simple D5, D7, D6 table. Oh, yes. Simple indeed. All right. We have a box text that gives us some acronyms for the various book titles. Here we go. Get your drinks ready. DPB for the Dolmenwood Player's Handbook, DCB for the Dolmenwood Campaign Book, and DMB for the Dolmenwood Monster Book. Part 5, adventuring. Adventuring advice for players, along with the full rules for encumbrance and travel in the wilds. The complete game features full rules and procedures for exploring the wilds, dungeons, and settlements, including rules for hazards and challenges, stealth, encounters, combat, foraging, hunting, and camping wild. Part 6, secrets of Dolmenwood. For referees' eyes only, an overview of one of the major factions in Dolmenwood, the Breggle nobility, an excerpt from one of the 12 settlements, 4 example hex descriptions, Dolmenwood encounter tables, and a selection of magic weapons, including special powers and curses. The complete game features the complete settings lore, refereeing advice, guidelines for adventure creation, an introductory dungeon adventure, 7 major factions, 12 settlements, over 280 NPCs, 200 hexes, and over 200 magic items, and 260 rumors to drive adventure and hijinks. Finally, I think, Part 7, monsters. For referees' eyes only, 4 example monsters: the zealous gargoyle, the tricksome goblin, the terrifying root thing, and the eerie yickerwill. The complete game features 87 fully detailed monsters, 47 normal and giant animals, 28 NPC stat blocks, 348 monster rumors, and 580 encounter seeds, along with guidelines for creating new monsters. Again, 580. So we have 576. And then we get 580. Does anyone want to say, are we suggesting you're going to roll 580 D10s? That wouldn't even get you 580, right? You'd have to roll, I don't even know how many D10s you'd have to roll. Somebody do the math. What's the easy? Well, I guess you could do, or you could do no. Say you could do 58 times D10. I suppose you could do 58 D10s, couldn't you? Or 5, would you have to do, I don't know. Somebody do the math. What dice are they using here? How are we getting all these really high numbers? And why 576 and then 580? Why not just have 580 or 576 for both? I'm curious. Inquiring minds want to know. I want to know. All right. On to the journey begins. A wanderer's first steps into the perilous realm Dolmenwood. Rife with intrigue, secrets, and magic, the beguiling realm of Dolmenwood draws travelers of adventurous spirit, daring them to adventure within. I need like a Dolmenwood horn or something. I don't have one. I don't think. I don't have a horn. I need to find some new sounds. Maybe if we get too much. Hey, John Carter. Frederick Rourke always likes the moss dwarves and NPCs. Yet again, something else I've not heard of. I've never heard of. We got an air horn here. What does it sound like? Hold on. I need my where are my headphones? I want to go full bore. So let me see here because I can't hear anything otherwise. What is the horn? It's kind of long. I don't want it to be that one. No. Do we have? No. No, nothing works. All right, I'm just going to point my finger, but next time I'll get some kind of quick and easy air horn. Fast. It's got to be fast. I don't have a big sound bank. I only have a couple that are loaded in here. So unfortunately, I don't have a full complement of sounds. John Carter asked, by the way, how long have I been playing the streaming? Well, I started about 20 minutes ago, John Carter, so we haven't gotten super far. So you're lucky. We just got through kind of intro stuff, and what we're on to, basically, we're just starting, I think, the real meat of it. Everything else has been sort of intro and explanation. Explore the wild places of the wood, traveling through bramble-choked dells, fungus-encrusted glades, and fetid marshes, bedding down among root and bracken amid the nocturnal babbling of strange beasts. Some nice alliteration there. Unearthed treasure hoards in forgotten ruins, haunted fairy manors, dripping caverns, crystal grottos, unhallowed barrow mounds, and abandoned delvings. Confront fell beasts, roving fungal monstrosities, terrible worms, tricksome fairies, and restless spirits of the long deceased. Recover saintly relics and shrines lost in the befuddling tangle of the wood, gaining the favor of the church by returning them to civilization. Forage for weird fungi and herbs in the untrod depths of the woods, many with useful magical powers and many that can be sold for profit. Strike against chaos, defending civilization from the encroaching forces of the wicked half-unicorn Naglord who lurks in the corrupted northern woods. Unravel secrets of deep magic, charting the obelisks, dolmens, and ley lines littered throughout Dolmenwood. But beware the sinister Droon cult that wards them. Seek the council of witches and hags, masters of magic that can heal, hex, or divine the future. Meddle in the affairs of the nobility, allying with the noble house in its intrigues and power plays in the courts of High Hankel and Castle Brackenwold. Journey along fairy roads, ancient magical paths bordering on the ageless realm of fairy that allow travel throughout Dolmenwood, and perchance to realms beyond. Return to the homely hearth to share tales of peril with quaint locals over a mug of ale and a well-stoked pipe. Okay. Whew. Well. All right, so we got a lot of stuff here. So you can unearth, explore, confront, recover, forage, strike, unravel, seek, meddle, journey, and then return. So that's a nice... It certainly gives a broad breadth of stuff you can do. There's obviously, if you want to be a more or less capitalist adventurer, it seems like you could do that. If you're interested in fighting against the powers of the darkness, you can do that. If you just want to kind of trudge around and find stuff, you can do that. If you want to get involved with fairy or witches or all kinds of other stuff, you got that too. And there goes my coffee. Okay. On to folk and factions. Introducing the folk of Dolmenwood and the factions that vie for control. Sentient folk. While humans dominate the settled reaches of Dolmenwood, they are not the only folk to call the place home. Breggles. The high-wooled region of southwestern Dolmenwood has been ruled since ancient times by the goat-headed Breggles. Excuse me. Breggles divide themselves into two castes, distinguished by the length of their horns, the aristocratic longhorns and the commoner shorthorns. All right, so now it's good to know what those guys look like, because when I was reading it before, I was just thinking, I have no idea what a Breggle is. I'm guessing it's just that I'm not familiar with ever mythology or stories those come from, but I'm glad to finally be able to put a face to the name, so to speak. Mosslings. The dank, fungal-infested lowlands of Mulch Grove in the eastern woods are home to a shy and stunted folk called mosslings, part mortal flesh and part plant or fungus. Fairies and demi-fae. Among the myriad peoples of fairy, a number venture into Dolmenwood and mingle with mortal folk, elves, otherworldly and beautiful. The little catfolk known as grimalkins and bat-faced woodgrews are the most commonly encountered. Other sentient beings. If one ventures off the beaten path in Dolmenwood, creatures of many other kinds may be encountered. Goblin tricksters peddle fairy fruits and other questionable wares. Scrabies emerge from their network of tunnels, eager to trade. Even a bird or animal may surprise travelers by greeting them from the wayside, spitting a riddle, or cursing their trespass. I don't know what a scrabie is, but I kind of want to know. Factions and powers. The Duchy of Brackenwold. Ruling from the supposedly impregnable Castle Brackenwold on the southeastern verge of the forest, the Dukes of Brackenwold traced their line back to the earliest settlers in the region. All mortal folk within the wood, from the humblest beggar to the highest lord, pay fealty to the Duke, and the whole forest is his property. The Pluritine Church. The monotheistic Pluritine Church is dominant throughout Dolmenwood and beyond. While it holds much political clout, the church is of late diminished in Dolmenwood. Many shrines and chapels that once saw regular worship have fallen into ruin and been reclaimed by the forest. Some within the church seek to rediscover and re-sanctify these lost shrines. The Cold Prince. Where now mortals reign, great fairy nobles once held court. The entirety of Dolmenwood was once the domain of a cruel elf lord known as the Cold Prince, Lord of Winter Eternal, who ruled from the palace of Horblight Keep, overlooking the great lake Longmere. When humans began to settle the wild glades of Dolmenwood, a great war between fairy and mortal ensued. Mortals eventually prevailed, and the Cold Prince was banished to his domain in Fairy. Fearful tales of his return to Dolmenwood and his icy wrath weave a common thread through the folklore of those who dwell within his erstwhile domain. The Nag Lord. A wicked trickster figure of local folklore said to keep unholy court in the twisted northern woods where his armies of corrupted Breggles and other creatures of chaos lair. The Nag Lord is portrayed in folk tales as being part man, part unicorn with 9 legs, 9 being regarded as an especially accursed number. The Droon, a cabal of sorcerers who roam the wood cloaked in black. They claim the magical energies of Dolmenwood and are self-appointed masters of the standing stones. What gods they worship is a matter of conjecture, for they guard their secrets with their lives. In the eyes of the church, they are heathens to be eradicated, for it is said that they deal in devil worship and human sacrifice. Kidnapped by the Droon is among the greatest fears of the simple folk of Dolmenwood, who refer to the cult as the Hooded Men, fearing to speak the word Droon. John Carter says they're a designer and freelance designer. That's cool. Designers are always good. We need them. I myself I do not think I have great design sensibilities. Though in terms of Dolmenwood, it is very beautifully designed. Frederick Orr calls out druids. Yeah, it sounds like the Droon are stand-ins for druids. So I'm curious if the description here they're giving, how accurate it is to what the Droon actually do, if we get a little bit of behind the scenes, because right now we're getting, I would call it the Brackenwold or not commoner, but just common perception. And is that what they are? Are they evil who are kidnapping and sacrificing folks, or are they misunderstood? The Witches, mortal women who worship ancient deities in the forbidden depths of Dolmenwood. Their aims are obscure, but it is known that they gather beneath the moon to work magic. In folklore, witches are variously portrayed as depraved practitioners of human sacrifice, lustful seductresses, they are said to be eternally young, and ministers of potent cures and charms. Igraine the Sorceress, a reclusive figure said to be the most powerful magician in Dolmenwood. Igraine dwells in the many-tiered Chateau Mauves, overlooking the black waters of the Dark Mirror. It is rumored that her explorations of otherworldly realms have brought her into contact with the Cold Prince, and that she now works her magic to release him from exile. Ooh, Ian says the Droon are the guys doing sacrifices that killed all the over-aggressive level 1 characters at the beginning of Winter's Daughter, the part that got removed in later printings. Aha. Okay, so that does sound familiar, because I believe when I looked over Winter's Daughter, I was looking at a later printing, and It might have been you, Ian, or somebody else mentioned something about the dream. Okay. On to what else we got here. And then we get a nice map of Dolmenwood. We don't get a sense of the scale. I mean, is that by design? There's no hex overlays, but obviously there's a good bit going on here. Table Downs. It's a pretty map too. I like it. Northern Scratch, Whip Lake, Upper, say Hamath, Coalstoke Keep, Castle Everdusk. There's High Hankel, the High Wold. Where is there's the Nagwood, Court of the Nag Lord. There's Brackenwald. Okay, Brackenwald is there. There's a Dark Mirror and Chateau Mauves. Cool. Nicely styled. Now we're on to part 2, characters. Adventurers are defined by a kindred, a class, and a set of statistics, some randomly determined and others chosen. 6 kindreds, Bregals, Elves, Grimalkins, Humans, Mosslings, and Woodgrus are described in detail, along with a set of tables for generating fun, quirky characteristics of individuals of each kindred. 9 classes of adventure are presented, representing common character archetypes within Dolmenwood. Ardent clerics, willful enchanters, dashing fighters, jolly friars, stealthy hunters, haughty knights, enigmatic magicians, charming minstrels, and wily thieves. Are they always referred to as with an adjective and a name? I'm going to be curious about that. Getting on to character statistics. The basic game statistics that describe an adventurer. Player characters are described by a set of statistics defining their abilities, strengths, and weaknesses in the game world. Ability scores. A character's basic physical and mental strengths and weaknesses. There are 6 ability scores: strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, and charisma. See ability scores, page 26. All right, a character is rated in each ability score by a number between 3 and 18, 3 being the worst score possible and 18 the best. I'm not going to say I'm bummed out by it, but I really wish that more folks would rename or do something else with intelligence. I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm at a point at which I don't love having intelligence as a stat. In BX, the only thing that intelligence really modifies is how many languages you know. I think so I like to think of it more in that case of maybe learning or experience, something of that nature, and not you're a dummy at 3 to super genius kind of thing. And wisdom kind of similarly, it can give you some saving throw bonuses, but that's about it. And I guess I just kind of wish that, particularly for intelligence, but maybe with wisdom also, that when you have these chances, like you're creating a new system where you could rethink these a little bit. I appreciate when folks rethink those attributes. And maybe it's a little bit of a lost opportunity that they didn't. But I get it, because I'm sure you're trying to keep this pretty darn close to old school essentials, since most people are probably going to use a combination of whatever is in these books and old school essentials. So you don't want to deviate too far. But, part of me is slightly bummed out by it. No, bummed out's not enough word. Part of me just wishes they could have done a little bit more. Ian says Dolmenwood is to OSC advanced as Electric Bastionland is to Into the Odd. That's probably accurate. And Frederick says Dolmenwood played great with the Ruins of Arduin. Yet another book I have not read. I'm sure as a setting, even if you take out all the mechanical information, I'm sure the setting would play great with lots of different rule sets. So we have our ability scores. On to kindred. A character may be human or one of another type of types of fantastic intelligent creatures that live in Dolmenwood. Each kindred has a number of special abilities, from fairy magic to combat talents. The kindreds players may choose from are Bregal, Elf, Grimalkin, Human, Mossling, Woodgrew. I'm gonna skip the parts of this that just give me page references. I don't think that's helpful, and I need to save as much as I can. Size. A character's kindred determines their size, either human-sized, medium, or smaller than human-sized, small. Creature type. A character's kindred also determines the type of creature they are classified as: demi-fae, human, humanoid, or fairy. Class. A character's role or profession as an adventurer. A character's class defines their main abilities. The classes players may choose from are Cleric, Enchanter, Fighter, Friar, Hunter, Knight, Magician, Minstrel, Thief. Okay, so that's the first time they did not put the adjectives in front of them. Level. A character's experience as an adventurer is denoted by their level. Characters typically start play at level 1, the lowest level of adventurer, and can increase in level through successful adventuring. As a character goes up in level, they gain more powerful abilities as defined by their class. This book contains rules for characters of up to level 15. Experience points. A character's advancement in the game is tracked by the accumulation of experience points. Experience points are awarded by the referee after a successful adventure. When a character has accumulated a certain number of experience points, their level increases. Each class specifies the number of experience points required to achieve each level. The only question I have here is, this has the same wording as BX, and I'm assuming Old School Essentials with adventure. And the problem issue that has come up is, what does one mean by adventure? It's implied in games, in BX and in modules, that adventure really is that expedition. So an adventure would be, you leave town, you go to some dungeon, you muck around, then you come back to town. And that coming back to town would constitute the end of that adventure. That the ending of that adventure does not mean you've solved the location you went to and cleared it out or finished whatever mission you're on, but you've retired back to that safe place where you're generally then cashing out your gold pieces for experience points. But by using the term adventure as opposed to something else, or defining adventure as going to somewhere dangerous and returning back to a safe place, it's that open to interpretation again. And some folks who read adventure is, if you're playing Keep on the Borderlands, is the adventure going to the keep, going from the keep to the Caves of Chaos, coming back, or is it finishing essentially as a group saying, okay, we're done with Keep on the Borderlands? Because it's the first one, then you're going to have multiple adventures within that module of B2 going back and forth. If it's the latter, then you're only getting one basically lump sum dump of experience, and that's after you've completed the entire Caves of Chaos adventure. After that whole module, after you've completed that, then you're coming back. So which one is it? If it's the latter one, it makes it a lot more difficult, because you're not going to have a chance to level up until you finish it, whatever finish it means. So I'm curious if they're going to define that for sure, or maybe they did a bit. I haven't read Old School Essentials in a while. I don't know if they took the time in that book to more carefully define what they mean by adventure when it's used in this context. We shall see. Prime abilities. The ability score or ability scores that are the most important to a character's class. A character with high scores in their prime abilities may gain a bonus to earned experience points. Conversely, a character with a low score in a prime ability may suffer a penalty to earned experience points. Hit points. A character's ability to avoid dying. A character has a maximum hit point total and a current hit point total, which are tracked separately. Rolling hit points. A character's hit points are rolled with a die type determined by their class. For example, fighters roll 1d8 and magicians roll 1d4. When play begins, current hit points and maximum hit points have the same value. Damage. When a character is harmed, their current hit point total is reduced. If this number reaches 0, the character dies. Healing. Rest or healing can restore lost hit points up to the character's maximum hit points. Gaining levels. When a character gains a level, a die is rolled and the result added to their maximum hit points. The type of die rolled is determined by the character's class. As hit points increase, characters are able to better face adversity and more dangerous foes. Armor class. A character's ability to avoid damage in combat. Armor class is determined by the character's armor and their dexterity score. Default armor class. An unarmored character with the average dexterity has armor class 10. Combat ability. A character's ability in combat is classified as martial, semi-martial, or non-martial, determined by their class. For example, fighter is a martial class and magician a non-martial class. Combat ability determines how quickly a character's attack and save targets advance. Attack. A character's ability to hit foes in combat determined by their class and level. A character's attack is a bonus added to attack rolls. Gaining levels. As characters advance in levels, their attacks get higher, increasing their chance of hitting opponents in combat. Save targets. A character's ability to avoid certain dangerous or detrimental effects determined by their class and level. Save targets are the numbers rolled against when making a saving throw. There are 5 saving throw categories, each representing a common type of effect. Doom, Ray, Hold, Blast, Spell. I think that's slightly, well, it's definitely slightly different, right? And BX, it's Death, Paralysis, Ray, Dragon's Breath, Spell. I know there's like Rod, whatever. There's they depending on what you're looking at, they kind of merge a few together. So they've changed the name slightly. I think even Old School Essentials uses the BX term, so they did change those, but you basically still have the same. They're essentially the same. You can see where the old ones fit in. Blast is Dragon's Breath, Doom is Death, Hold is Paralysis. Hey, Gashrin. Okay, now on to, let's see, Speed. The speed at which a character can move when exploring, traveling, or during combat. Default speed. The default speed for characters is 40. This may be adjusted by the amount of gear and treasure character is carrying. Skills. Skills represent specific competencies useful in adventuring. As professional adventurers, all characters have basic competence with certain common activities: listening, searching, and wilderness survival. Some classes grant the use of additional specialized skills. I guess that's from Advanced, right? OSC Advanced, that kind of brings in some of the skillishness from other editions into OSC. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I have not really read much of OSC Advanced at all. I'm just more aware that it exists. Kindred and class traits. Finally, a character's kindred and class list a set of special abilities and restrictions, including the ability to speak one or more native languages. Then we have some box text on monster statistics. While this book does not contain a full bestiary, game statistics for a small number of monsters and animals are present. Monsters, animals, and NPCs are described with a simplified set of statistics, only listing the main stats required for combat. Most monster statistics are the same as those used for characters, but the following points are worth noting. So they have size. So you can go for medium, you can have small, or you can have large. Type, you can have animal, bug, construct, demi-fae, dragon, fairy, fungus, human, humanoid, monstrosity, ooze, plant, or undead. Intelligence, you can have mindless, animal intelligence, semi-intelligent, low intelligence, sentient, or genius. HP, the dice rolled to determine a monster's hit points with the average value noted in parentheses. Saves, the monster's save targets listed using the following initials: D, R, H, B, and S. And then finally, attacks. The monster can make each round with the attack bonus and damage in parentheses, and experience points for the award for defeating the monster. And we have an example here, a Prigwort Prancer, level 2. So they're not using HD, they're using level. AC 12, hit points 2d8, and Pren's 9. It's got some saves, it's got 2 hoof attacks, it's got 80 speed, morale of 7, and XP of 20. I'm surprised they didn't mention morale in here, because that's something that obviously you don't need for characters, but is fairly important for monsters. On to the Breggle. Goat-headed folk whose horn length indicates their social standing. So does that mean you get to grow your horns out longer during the game? Kindred type, they're mortal. How much of the, I guess I'll read all the things. So the level 1 PC age is 15 plus 2d10 years. Their lifespan is 50 plus 2d20 years. Their height is 5'4 plus 2d6 inches. Their weight is 120 plus 6d10 pounds. Their native languages are Woldish, Gaff, and Caprice. I have no idea what those are. Frederick says NPCs need morale. No, I agree with you, and I think that they would agree with you too. I'm just surprised that in that when they were going over the things that were part of the NPC stat block, they didn't mention morale as a thing, but it is included in their example. Maybe just an oversight, I'm not sure. The proud and stubborn Breggles, sometimes called goat folk or Hregel in their own tongues, have inhabited the High Wold since antiquity. Once the sole masters of the fertile region of hills, meadows, and tangled woods, the ancient Breggle noble houses now rule alongside humans, swearing fealty to the Dukes of Brackenwold. Breggles live much as humans do, dwelling in hamlets, farmsteads, and castles. In the larger towns of the High Wold, Breggles live side by side with humans. Shorthorns and Longhorns. Breggles divide themselves into 2 castes, differentiated by horn length. Shorthorns, the working class, and Longhorns, the noble class. Despite this division, Shorthorns and Longhorns are in fact the same species. The horns of a Shorthorn who earns wealth and renown will grow, eventually reaching Longhorn proportions 4 inches or more. True acceptance in the ruling class, however, is another matter. Half-Breggles. Human and Breggles occasionally marry, but offspring are rare and plagued with genetic abnormalities. Crookhorns. Among the armies of the wicked Naglord are a multitude of corrupted Breggles known as Crookhorns, twisted in mind and body by the evil magic of their master. The Breggles of the High Wold regard Crookhorns as wretched abominations to be eradicated at any opportunity. Religion and ancestor worship. As subjects of the Duke, Breggles are nominally members of the Pleuratine Church. True devotion is, however, rare among Breggles, who prefer to offer prayers to esteemed ancestors from their long history. And we do have some back box text on half-Breggle player characters if you'd like. The rare half-Breggles that survive to adulthood tend to strongly take after one of their parents. Players wishing to create a character of half-Breggle parentage should treat the character as either human or Breggle. So basically, if you want to be half-Breggle, you just choose which side is the strongest and presumably follow their stat blocks and stuff. So there's not a dedicated half-Breggle class. Kindred relations. Breggles are on friendly terms with humans, but are suspicious of fairies, knowing them from folklore as wily and untrustworthy. Within the High Wold, Breggles are a commonplace sight in towns and villages, many living alongside humans. Further afield, they are treated with respect and caution, as the power of the Goat Lords is known and feared. Names. A small number of Breggle surnames are shared by humans native to the High Wold, the two kindreds having lived side by side for many centuries. Naming a character, either choose a first name and surname from the table below, roll 1d20 for each, or invent something in a similar vein. And I'm not going to read through names, but we'll give you one. Curlip Elbogen. Maybe one more. Shadwick Snickelbach. So there you go. Instant Breggle names at your disposal. Extra details. The tables on the following pages may optionally be used to add extra details to a Breggle player character. Players may roll on as many of these tables as desired, or may use them as inspiration for character details of their own creation. So what are the tables? I don't know, but we have choosing a class. So a Breggle's favorite class is a knight, which I guess doesn't seem, I don't think having a favorite class actually imposes or grants anything. It's just maybe that there are more knight Breggles than other sorts of Breggles. Other classes, Breggle adventurers are also commonly fighters and magicians. They are only occasionally accepted into the ranks of the church as clerics or friars. Gaze. Upon attaining Longhorn status from level 4, a Breggle character can use their gaze to charm humans and shorthorns into obeisance. Activating. The Longhorn must gaze intently at an individual, human or shorthorn. Effect. If the target fails a save versus spell, they are charmed to view the Longhorn character with awe and respect. While charmed, the target is unable to harm the Longhorn either directly or indirectly. It lasts until the next sunrise, and there's something called resisting. The holy spell protection from evil counters a Longhorn's gaze. I see. Okay, so it's resisting, or I guess it's a resistance. I don't know. Whatever. Usage frequency. See the Breggle advancement table. In any case, a Longhorn may use their gaze at most once per target per day. And then if we look at the advancement, at 4th level, they get it once per day, 2 per day at 6th level, 3 per day at 8th level. Finally, at 10th or higher level, they have 4 of those per day. Pretty cool. It seems like a limited charm effect, which I guess is necessary. It doesn't look like you do whatever they say, like the charm spell, but it does have that nice effect that they can't do anything. And meaning the directly or indirectly is you can't do something like, I don't know, roll a boulder off a cliff onto the Breggle that's charmed you below, something like, or I don't know, that would probably still be direct. I'm not even sure what indirect would mean, but it definitely means that if you were charmed by one and you were still going to try to harm it in some way, or maybe someone else was going to order you to harm it, that it would still be pretty hard, if not impossible. Horns. A Breggle character can make a melee attack with their horns instead of attacking with a weapon. The damage inflicted increases with level as indicated in the advancement table. Horn length and social standing. A Breggle character begins play as a commoner of the Shorthorn caste, aspiring to improve their lot in life. As they advance in level, gaining experience, wealth, and renown, their horns grow. Longhorn status. Upon reaching level 4, a Breggle character's horns have grown to the point that the character is recognized as a Longhorn. So the neat thing about this is it sort of mirrors the hero. When you reach hero status and something OD&D, 4th level is at least for fighter types, is that hero where you do move into a new phase, if you will. Heroes get special advantages. They can fight on the fantasy table, fantastic combat table. You get a lot of sort of quality of life improvements as an OD&D fighter example, or really any character when you reach a level that you get that title hero. And they've preserved a little bit of that in that if you're a Bregel and you advance to level 4, you get this kind of bump. You get this new ability. You get recognized in society. And I think that's pretty cool. I like that. I'm down with that. So we get here are those tables that were spoken of earlier. I'm not going to go through all these, but you get some backgrounds, some trinkets. You can get some, what is this? A whole bunch of, I guess, characteristics for your head, your face, your fur, your speech, your demeanor, your dress, your desires, and your beliefs. I wonder if you get those odd numbers. I was saying at the beginning how they mentioned all these numbers of things you get, like 576. I think it was one number of something. I wonder if they've done the math and wrote down, well, if you one background, then whatever of these, and then all these, and you start multiplying all these things together, you get some of those high numbers of ultimate choices or variations. I don't know. Somebody do all the math on that and then get back to me, because I don't have the skill or the patience. Cleric. These are holy warriors in service of the Pleuratine Church. Their prime ability is wisdom. They get 1d6 hit points per level. Their combat ability, they are semi-martial. Their armor is any, including shields, and weapons are any. So no more non-edged weapons only for the cleric. I don't even remember if that's in BX or not, but I don't know. I always feel like blunted, non-edged weapons are just synonymous with clerics, but not here. Clerics are members of an order of holy warriors sworn to the service of the Pleuratine Church. They are organized in strict religious hierarchy under the command of higher-ranking church officials. Player character clerics are typically granted a writ of self-determination, allowing them to roam freely and carry out the will of God as they see fit. Restrictions. Alignment. As servants of the church, clerics must be lawful or neutral. A cleric who becomes chaotic falls from grace. Oh, I like that there is a way to fall from grace, and it also is implying that you can change alignment. Kindred. Conventionally, only humans and occasionally Bregels and Mosslings are trained as clerics. Magic armaments. Clerics are forbidden to use magic weapons, armor, and shields of arcane or fairy origin. They may only use holy magic armaments. Interesting. Starting equipment. Armor. You can roll. It could be leather. Okay, I'm not going to read through all the options, but you can roll for your armor. You can roll for your weapon. There is a boxed text here with cleric tenets. Evangelism. Non-believers are to be brought into the fold and converted. Hierarchy. The hierarchy of the church is to be upheld. Those of lesser rank must obey their supervisors. Monotheism. Only one true God exists. Other religions worship personifications of divine aspects of God or the host of saints. Sanctity of life. Human life is sacred. Clerics must protect the innocent with all means available. So a couple of interesting things here. The sanctity of life, human life is sacred. I think that's key, and I don't think that's accidental. But I noticed that it doesn't say protect human innocent. So you're still, I don't think, supposed to just murder the innocence of non-humans, but only human life is truly sacred. Or maybe there's just some wiggle room in there if you want to play with it, but it's kind of interesting. And the bit with the one true God is also interesting. It's not suggesting the other gods are demons or devils, but just that everything that other folks believe are just aspects of your God. So it's a little bit more of a positive take on other religions. It is a somewhat positive one. It definitely is a bit of arrogance. Like, oh, like you think you're worshiping a real God, but really you're just worshiping the armpit of my God, who encompasses all. Detect holy magic items. A cleric can identify holy magic items by touch. Identifying an item takes 1 turn. Oh, that's interesting. Holy magic. Let's see. Holy symbol. A cleric must carry a holy symbol. Falling from grace. Clerics must be faithful to the tenets of their order, which we just read. Cleric who falls from grace loses the ability to pray for spells. The referee may allow the character to perform a quest of atonement in order to regain favor. Spellcasting. Once a cleric has proven their faith from level 2, the character may pray to the host of saints to receive divine aid in the form of holy spells. And then we get that on the table. We'll get how many spells a cleric may memorize. So they are memorizing spells also. using magic items. Clerics can use magic items that may only be used by holy spellcasters. And then they're keeping the BX and OSE spell progression. So sorry, clerics, no spells at level 1 still. If you thought you were getting some, you're not. You are still spellless to start. Holy Order. Upon reaching level 2, a cleric is initiated into one of the following holy orders selected by the player. This is cool. The Order of St. Faxus. The Order of Witch Hunters and Inquisitors. Clerics of St. Faxus follow an edict to root out and bring to justice unsanctioned practitioners of the occult. Arcane Antipathy. A cleric of St. Faxus gains a +2 bonus to saving throws against arcane magic. Arcane spellcasters suffer a -2 penalty to saving throws against spells cast by a cleric of St. Faxus. Oh, that's interesting. It reminds me a bit of those subclasses in 5th edition or other things. They're putting it in 5th edition. I think it's 3rd level, right, where you pick your subclass. If I'm remembering correctly, it's been a little while. Here they give it to you at second level, which is cool too. The Order of St. Sedge. The Order of Crusaders. Clerics who make holy war in lands where the law of the church is contested. Laying on hands. A cleric of St. Sedge can heal by laying their hands on wounded characters. Each day, the cleric can heal a total up to 1 hit point per level. And then finally, the Order of St. Cygnus, the Order of Lich Wards, clerics who watch over the dead and hunt those which, in the defiance of God, rise again. Undead Slayer. A character of St. Cygnus gains a +1 attack bonus against undead monsters. Their attacks can also harm undead monsters that can normally only be harmed by magic or silver weapons, even when not wielding a weapon of the appropriate type. So these are very cool. I like these a lot. I kind of wish there were more of them. Of course, you could invent more. Maybe they will have more in the full book, but these are really nice. I like that it sort of spreads out some abilities. So and it's not dissimilar from a subclass, right? It's just you get one special thing, and you get to choose. My only question is, this isn't a bad thing because you got to give it at some time, but I wonder if 2nd level is far enough along, because my idea would be that you get to, first you're just a vanilla cleric, in this case for 1 level, and you get to experience the world. You get to, in this case, the world of the Dolmenwood. It's been a while since I've said it. The world of Dolmenwood, and you get to see somewhat what the game is about or what your particular campaign is about, what your party's about, so on and so forth. And then you get to this point where you're choosing this specialty. And once you've chosen that, you're gaining a power, but you are also you're choosing a path, because you're going to gain, let's say, Arcane Antipathy, but then you cannot gain Lay on Hands, and you cannot gain Undead Slayer. With the 5th edition approach of having it at 3rd level, I thought that was nice, at least on paper, because you have 2 levels where you really get to see what's going on, and then the 3rd level, you make that choice. When you're pushing it to 2nd level, I wonder if just in practice, you'll have enough of the vibe of the game to be able to confidently make this choice. Because I'm guessing that once it's made, you don't unmake it, you don't join multiple orders. So I'm wondering if 3rd level might have been better to give it just a 2nd level, but of course you're gaining abilities that you might need. So maybe it's better at the 2nd level. I don't know. I'm curious if folks in there have an idea if they like that. They like it, obviously. If they dislike it, that would be another thing. Or if they think it's too early, too late, should they push it to later? I'm also a big fan of the prestige class, at least the idea, the concept of the prestige class. And this also reminds me of the prestige class sort of thing. But prestige classes generally activate later on. You've done more before you hit the prestige class. But this is really cool. I wonder what levels would be the best for it. But maybe second is good, because goodness knows all those things are useful, especially when you're at low level. Languages. In addition to their native languages, clerics speak liturgic, the language of church scripture. Turning the undead. Cleric may attempt to drive off undead monsters by presenting their holy symbol and invoking the might of the one true God. I'm not going to read through the turning stuff. I think we all get that, right? Ian says they definitely aren't doing any kind of strict subclass paradigm. Enchanters equivalent seems to be fairy runes, but you don't seem to be limited to ever picking just one. Okay, well we'll see the enchanters when we get over there. It doesn't look like that you get to pick more than one though, so you're only going to get So, you know, with the Holy Order, you're picking one. Though the nice thing here is what I would maybe see, you know, if I was seeing this and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to make something for this game, or I would definitely maybe give some, I guess I'd like to explore what advancement and what kind of things are in these orders. So I think there's a lot of neat stuff you can do. And that's beyond maybe creating some more orders. Very cool. Very cool. Enchanter. Tim the Enchanter. There's some who call me Tim. Wanderers who wield the magic of fairy, currying favor with fairy nobles. Prerequisites are charisma and intelligence. They get D6 hit points. They are semi-martial. They can wear light and medium armor, but no shields, and they can use small and medium weapons. Individuals whose contact with fairy has imbued them with innate magic known as glamours. Enchanters are also blessed with the use of the fairy runes guarded by the lords of the Undying Realm, though such gifts are not always without cost. Restrictions. Kindred. Typically only fairies and demi-fae, elves, grimalkins, and woodgrewes may become enchanters. Occasionally a mortal with a strong connection to fairy may also become an enchanter. For example, a person with mixed fairy ancestry, an individual kidnapped by fairies in childhood, or someone who wandered lost in fairy for many years. Okay, so these are individuals whose contact with fairy has imbued them with innate magic, known as glamours. Cool. Ian wants to see how the friar class compares to cleric. Yes, indeed. Starting equipment. All right, I'm not going to read those because they're just kind of roles. Enchanter skills. Enchanters gain one additional specialized skill that cannot be attempted by characters of other classes. The Enchanter skills table lists the character's chance of success as they advance in level. All right, fine. They get detect magic. That's cool. An enchanter can attempt to detect the subtle resonances that are woven into an enchanted object, place, or creature. If the attempt succeeds, the enchanter knows if the object, place, or creature being focused on is magical, i.e. enchanted, affected by a spell, or possessed of innate magic of some kind. Does that include holy magic? I would say yes, but it feels like it's a little bit unclear. Requirements. The enchanters must touch the object, place, or creature to be analyzed and must be able to concentrate without distraction. And then it requires one turn. You can retry failed attempts as often as you want, but each attempt requires an additional turn. And then downtime. Given an hour of solitude in a safe location, an enchanter can automatically detect magic on an object, place, or creature. And then we have some advancements, which I'm not going to read through, but they get one glamour per level, essentially. Fairy runes. Enchanters are granted the use of fairy runes, the secret magical sigils guarded by the rulers of fairy. At level 1, an enchanter knows one randomly selected rune of lesser magnitude, and then upon gaining a level, there's a chance that an enchanter's great deeds will attract the favor of a fairy noble who will grant the character use of a new rune. Glamours. Enchanters possess minor magical abilities known as glamours. The number of glamours known is determined by the character's level. Kindred glamours. Some kindreds, e.g. elf or grimalkin, gain glamours as a result of their ancestry. Such glamours are in addition to glamours gained by this class. Great. So you get to double up on your glamours if you're an elf or grimalkin. Magic items. Enchanters have a natural affinity for the arcane and are able to use magic items that may only be used by arcane spellcasters. Resistance to divine aid. The saints of the Pluralitine Church are loath to aid those allied with the godless realm of fairy. If an enchanter is the subject of a beneficial holy spell, there's a 2 in 6 chance of it having no effect. Well, that's kind of a cool drawback. I like that because you have these opposing forces, so of course they don't really harmonize together, which I can appreciate. So we only get Bregel, Cleric, and Enchanter. Part 3, Magic. Many creatures in Dolmenwood, mortal, monstrous, and fey, wield magic of one kind or another. Among the common folk of the wood, all magic is considered fearsome and capricious. For fairies, on the other hand, with enchantment woven into their very being, using magic is as natural as breathing, speaking, or singing. This section discusses the kinds of magic that player characters may be able to use, from the humble knacks of moslings to the mighty workings of magicians. All right. So I was hoping, Ian, when you said about the friar class, we get to see it. But obviously, we'll have to wait for the full full reveal in the post-Kickstarter Dolmenwood book for how friars compare. Fairy magic. Magic originating in the ageless realm where all is woven with enchantment. Fairy magic takes two forms: the glamours innate to folk touched by the magic of fairy, and the runes guarded by the fearsome fairy nobles. Mortals and fairy magic. Some glamours and runes only affect creatures classified as quote-unquote mortals. Glamours. Glamours are innately possessed by natives of fairy and by other folk touched by the magic that weaves through that realm. The mortals regard glamours as magic. For fairies, they are as natural as breathing, speaking, or singing. Learning glamours. The number of glamours known by a character is determined by their kindred, class, and level. Using glamours. Glamours may be activated by thought alone without the need for gesture or incantation. That made me think of the what's the Mentats thing, you know, with my thoughts I set my mind in motion. I can't remember exactly what. I always think of the movies. What's the Mentat? Peter de Vries drinking the juice of Safu and on Gedi Prime, talking about setting his mind in motion. Glamour usage frequency. Unless noted otherwise in a glamour's description, a character may use the glamours they know any number of times per day. In combat, using a glamour counts as the character's action in a round. Unless noted otherwise in the glamour's description, the character may move in the same round. Using a glamour is not treated as casting a spell, and glamours cannot be disrupted. Ooh, that's cool. Runes. The fairy runes are among the deepest magical secrets of fairy kind. Discovered by mighty elf sorcerers in aeons long past, the runes tap into the magical fundament of fairy itself. Their usage is thus governed by ancient and immutable laws of fairy. The runes are guarded by by fairy nobles, who at times may bestow their use upon individuals of lesser rank. Intangibility. Runes are intangible. They are not physical objects and thus cannot be stolen, lost, or given to another. Magnitude. Pop, pop. Runes are divided into 3 levels of magnitude: lesser runes, greater runes, and mighty runes. Learning runes. The acquisition of runes is governed by the mercurial whims of the fairy nobles. Whenever a character, due to their class, has the chance of acquiring a new rune, the player must roll 2d6 and consult the rune granted table. So the rune granted table, basically it's a d12, got some modifiers, and it's if you roll 2 or less, no rune. If you roll 3 to 7, 1 lesser rune. 8 to 11, 1 greater rune. 12 or more, 1 mighty rune. They're all randomly selected, so you don't get a chance. If you happen to pick one that you already got, so you rolled and you were granted a rune, you rolled to see which rune you got, and you're granted the same rune you already had, you don't get to roll again, but you do get to double the number of times you can use it. So hopefully that's a good rune, because then that would be useful. If it's not a good rune, I don't know if there are any bad runes, but if it's not a great one or one you don't like, then yeah, you're kind of out of luck. And there's a referee option that a fairy noble may require a character to perform some deed or quest in return for the granting of a rune. Ian says, bit of trivia, Karen was made because of Dolmenwood, because Yochai Gal wanted to play Into the Odd, but it clashed with the fairy fantasy setting. Oh, look at that. Ian, good job. Today I learned. Using runes. Runes may be activated by thought alone without the need for gesture or incantation. Rune usage frequency. The magical laws governing the fairy runes place strict limits on the number of times a rune may be used by the one on whom it is bestowed. This depends on the magnitude of the rune, lesser, greater, or mighty, and the current level of the character, i.e. not the character's level when the rune was granted. See, then they have a table. In combat, activating a rune takes 1 round of concentration. The character may not move in the same round as using a rune. Using a rune is treated as casting a spell, and if the character is harmed before their initiative, the rune is disrupted. All right, that's interesting. Here's some box text on quests in Fairy, which is an optional rule. If the referee wishes, a character may be required to journey to a noble's court in Fairy to receive a new rune rather than receiving it in a dream or vision. This journey may be briefly narrated as a downtime event between adventures or may be played out as a full adventure, depending on the preferences of the group. Entering Fairy. The character may use any means of entering Fairy that they have discovered through the course of their adventures. Alternatively, they may receive a special invitation from a fairy noble, allowing entrance to Fairy for a short period via a special portal. Passing of time while the character's journey in Fairy, 2d20 days past the mortal world. I definitely think, I mean, who knows how it would play, because obviously I haven't played this yet. I definitely like the idea of having to, in some way, play through going to these fairy nobles and getting access to a rune. I just think it adds just a whole other layer. You can have lots of fun social, political moments. There could even be some danger involved. So I would probably want to play that out as much as possible. At least that's my impulse. Now, maybe when we're actually playing, I'd have to change my mind, but that's what I think right now. Glamours. So we have Awe, Beguilement, Breath of the Wind, Cloak of Darkness, Conjure Treats, Dancing Flame, Disguise Object, Fairy Dust, Flame Charm, Fool's Gold, Forgetting, Masquerade, Mirth and Malice, Moonsight, Seeming, Silver Tongue, Subtle Sight, Through the Keyhole, Vanishing, and Walk in Shadows. And there are going to be a lot more of these. These are just the ones they're giving us now. As far as lesser runes, we've got Deathly Blossom, Fog Cloud, Gust of Wind, Proof Against Deadly Harm, Rune of Vanishing, Sway the Mortal Mind. For greater runes, we have Arcane Unbinding, Fairy Gold, Fairy Steed, Ice Storm, Rune of Invisibility, Sway the Monstrous Mind. And finally, for mighty runes, we have Dream Ship, Eternal Slumber, Rune of Death, Rune of Wishing, Summon Wild Hunt, and Unravel Death. Ooh, I like the sound of Summon Wild Hunt. Faux show. So I'm not going to read through all the glamours. Which one sounds good that we should read? Cloak of Darkness, maybe? Masquerade? Fool's Gold? Mirth and Malice. Let's do Mirth and Malice. So Mirth and Malice, each one of these has a duration, has a range. Obviously, it has a description, and then it has some other... I'm not sure if those are, I guess, just the, not requirements necessarily, but just the attributes, the just pieces of the bits that make up the glamour. So we have Mirth and Malice, lasts a turn, 30-foot range. When speaking to a group of mortals, the caster can impart a subtle sense of shared cheer or creeping discord. And then there's a language requirement. The targets must understand the caster's words. So you can't be speaking one language, and just because you're using this glamour that folks who don't understand you can be affected by the spell, you have to be able to speak whatever language they understand. You have to be able to speak. You have to be speaking it. Minimum time speaking. The caster must speak to the group of mortals for at least one turn. After this time, a total of up to one level of mortals per level of the caster must save versus spell. Up to one level of mortals per level of the caster. Okay, those who fail are strongly affected, either expressing great affection or anger. The caster has no control over how these feelings are directed or expressed. When the caster stops speaking, the imparted emotion dissipates within one turn. The usage frequency is once per day per group. Ian asks if the glamours aren't leveled in any way, right? And that seems to be the case. Though so the usage frequency for Mirth and Malice is you can only try it on one group once per day, but you can try it on different groups. As long as you have different groups, you can keep trying it. The thing that's interesting is I can see here they're using level instead of hit die. I'm probably gonna have to get used to that, because I think like one level of mortals per level of the caster. One thing that's nice about hit die is that you can have at level, you can kind of keep that referring to the caster level, and then hit die refers to the hit dice of things. But by using level for both, I could see how reading that it could be a little bit confusing, but it seems like you're gonna. And I don't know, it's not explained. Maybe they don't have it, but let's say, common folk or things that may not. I guess you just add up. I was going to say, is there an issue with fractional hit dice? But probably not. If you're dealing with 1/4 hit die creatures and 4 of them make up one level, right? So that seems to probably work okay. But just reading it, having level used twice like that probably adds a little bit potentially of an issue that you might not have had if you're using hit dice as a term. But it's cool. The one thing that's going to be interesting is the caster has no control over how these feelings are directed or expressed. So it doesn't. So on the one hand, it's like, okay, I could get into a situation where maybe these folks are they're angry at me, and I can try to talk, and so I guess maybe the best one would be to talk and make them happy, so they're no longer angry at me. I suppose that'd be one. But maybe the other use case would be you want to talk and sow discord in their ranks, but you don't really get to say how they're directed or expressed. So I guess as a GM, you just have to be mindful of that, so that if you decide to sow malice in the ranks, it would seem pretty pointless if they just then attacked you or something like that, right? Because the whole point would be to distract them. But it doesn't say that you really get to control it. So I don't know. Maybe I would have liked if they would have said, hey, just given a little thing like, yeah, you can't direct how they do it, but malice won't be directed at you. It's kind of it's sort of it's implied in that you could give them creeping discord amongst themselves, but then it also seems to be saying, hey, you can't determine that that creeping discord could easily just come to you. I don't know. It's very circumstantial, I guess, the way that's written. Maybe I don't know. Ian says you can only affect one commoner at level 1. Yeah, well, not necessarily. If they have one hit die, then yes. It kind of depends, I guess, on what commoners have in this game. I don't know. What is BX? Are BX commoners? Are they one hit die? Hold on a second. Sorry, I had to reach off camera to get my binder. Ow. Are regular folk one hit die? Do I even know? I don't even know if I have. Let's see. I don't want to get too sidetracked trying to find normal people in here. Let's see. NPC party. Normal human. Let's see. They have... It doesn't really say that they have hit dice. It just says 1 to 4 hit points. A normal human is a human who does not seek dangerous adventure. A normal human does not have a class. Normal humans have their own saving throws and hit numbers. They have 1 to 4 hit points. Most humans are normal humans. So in BX, normal humans have no hit dice. So what do you say? I'm not sure if OSC fixed that, or I don't know, fixed in quotes. So that might mean that you can affect as many normal humans as your heart desires. Ian says the description text applies to a person staying in the middle of a town square raising torches and pickaxes to me. Yeah, it seems like that, right? That seems like the intent is this sort of, we got to get Dr. Frankenstein. Oh, yeah, get your pitchforks. Yeah, I guess it would really come down to, I guess, in here, because I guess knowing BX doesn't really tell the full story, so we'll have to see what the listings are. But how many hit dice how many levels does a normal human have? In BX, they basically have no hit dice. They literally, in the description, it gives just their hit points and no hit dice. So how do you, it might mean if this spell existed in BX that you could, at level 1, you could rabble rouse as many normal humans as can hear you and can understand you. And then obviously once they start gaining class levels or anything else, then they're kind of, that changes the math a lot. Or you could say they have 1/4 or 1/8 or 1/16, and then it would go from there. So I don't know. We don't know. It's not, again, it's not totally clear. The range is 30 feet. So there is some maximum amount of people you're going to be able to gather around to hear you. If indeed normal people are levelless. Frederick says they've always had normal humans at 1 HP and rolled on wizard to hits and thief saves. Well, Frederick, that may be, but that doesn't actually mean anything in this instance, because we're not talking about what their hit points are or where they save. We're talking about how many hit dice they have. In BX, it is fairly specific in that where it says hit dice, it only shows hit points. It does not give an actual hit die. So it comes down to, if you're using BX, and I'm assuming OSC vanilla follows the same, is how do you rule what that is in hit dice, right? So it doesn't matter. We're not talking about where they save or how many hit points they have. It's how that translates to hit dice, because how much hit dice they have would directly determine how many of them you could affect as a single level person with a glamour. Gashman says, okay, symbol spells affect unlimited normal people. And no, well, Gashman, we're going to pop that bubble right now that Ian pulled up OSE, which has normal humans having half a hit die. So at first level, though it is nice, so at first level, you can use this on 2 people. So it's not quite as, you don't get to be Sauron, commanding armies of normal people at level 1, but you get 2. So that's not bad. That's fair. Fair, I would say. Mystery solved. Holy magic. The spells bestowed upon devoted members of the Pleuratine Church. Holy spells take the form of blessings bestowed upon characters by the grace of the saints of the Pleuratine Church. When a spell is cast, the blessing expires until it is bestowed again. When a spell is cast, the blessing expires until it is bestowed again. So you can... I don't quite understand that. When a spell... So the holy spells are blessings, right? Holy spells take the form of blessings. When a spell is cast, the blessing expires until it's bestowed again. Am I missing something? Can somebody explain to me? Am I missing something here? If spells are blessings, why when you cast the spell, the blessing expires? Or are they just saying that if you cast something, if you do a new blessing, the old one expires, only one blessing is active at any one time? I'm guessing that's how that's supposed to mean. But am I missing something? If I'm reading that wrong, or if there's some nuance that I'm totally bludgeoning, let me know. Ian says 5th level rousing an army of 10 farmers isn't too bad. Well, it's think of it this way: you can do it as many times as you want. So you can take those 10 farmers, go to the next farm, grab 10 more farmers. So you can keep going. Though, what do we say? How long does it last? Hold on, let's go back really quick. It lasts basically as long as you keep talking, I guess. So you could be what is it, what's the kind of a Pied Piper type, but speaking. Yeah, you could keep marching along, but you'd have to keep talking the whole time, or you'd lose the people you had. So you kind of have to filibuster your way through the village. But it could be done. It might take some doing, but it could be done to get a big crowd, which I guess is fair. That makes it challenging. And I think it might be fun in the game if you made the player continuously speak as they move around or something, because they may have to deal with certain challenges, but they have to keep talking. Major and minor saints. So let me reread this, and again, let me know if I missed some nuance here. But this first paragraph is confusing to me. Holy spells take the form of blessings bestowed upon characters by the grace of the saints of the Pleuratine Church. When a spell is cast, the blessing expires until it is bestowed again. Major and minor saints. Among the 100 saints worshipped in Dolmenwood, 34 are primary and have the power to bestow blessings upon those who pray to them, each being associated with a specific spell. Certain minor saints are also able to bestow blessings to those who pray at their dedicated shrines and are associated with less common spells outside of the standard holy spell list. Saintly legends. The primary legend of each saint is recounted beside the associated spell. Spell ranks. Spells are categorized by rank from rank 1, the least powerful, to rank 5, the most powerful. A holy spell caster's level determines which rank of spells they're able to cast. Praying for spells. A holy spell caster may pray to the saints once per day, receiving their blessings in the form of spells. Rest. A character can only pray for spells following an uninterrupted night's sleep. Time. Praying for spells requires 1 hour of quiet prayer. Number of spells. The maximum number of spells that can be bestowed on a holy spellcaster at one time depends on their class and level. Spell selection. When praying for spells, a holy spellcaster may choose any holy spell of appropriate rank listed in this book. Duplicate spells. If a character can cast more than one spell of a given rank, they may pray for multiple copies of a spell. So you do have to choose. You do have to choose how many copies. You can't just say, "Oh, I'd like Dispel Evil" or something, and then you can just use Dispel Evil multiple times. You have to say, "I asked for Dispel Evil 3 times." Ian says, in their experience, once an angry mob is angry, they tend to stay angry, at least until the angriest farmer gets mauled by the werewolf. This is true. This is true. But the one thing that's also not described by that spell is, for your example, the angry mob, are they aware that they're manipulated once the glamour wears off? I'm going to say no, they're not. Otherwise, it would be almost pointless to use unless you're going to use it and then immediately get on a horse and gallop far, far away. But it's another unknown in terms of how that particular glamour is presented. Praying at shrines. Characters may come across shrines in Dolmenwood dedicated to a specific saint. A holy spellcaster who prays for 1 hour at such a shrine may be granted the blessing of the saint in the form of an additional spell. That's very cool. I'm guessing you can't go above and beyond your spells per day, or is that additional spell literally additional to the spells you can normally have? Because on the one hand, praying for spells says that you can't, you have a maximum that depends on your class and level. But this one says additional spell. But I wonder if that means it's above and beyond. If you're at your max and you just started out the day, you hadn't cast any spells, you come across a shrine. Can you spend an hour in that and then you just have one extra spell? Or is it that you've been on your adventuring day, you've cast multiple spells, you crawl to a shrine, and then you're able to get a spell back, filling a slot that you had already spent? Casting spells. A bestowed spell may be cast by reciting a prayer in the liturgic tongue. When a spell is cast, the saint's blessing expires until it is bestowed again. I see. Okay, so the saints bless you by giving you a spell, and you have that saint's blessing until you use the spell, in which case that blessing is gone. I think it's worded a little bit. It makes sense, but I wonder, is there something meaningful to having this relationship? So if we're saying you are a cleric, you pray to a certain saint, that saint blesses you, which gives you this ability to cast the spell. You're holding on to this blessing. Once you cast the spell, the blessing is gone. Is that condition, let's say, of being blessed have meaning? Are we going to run into things that say, hey, if you're blessed, this happens. If you're not blessed, this other thing happens? If there is, that's very cool, and I would definitely want to play with that. If it's not, then I don't know if having it said that way just adds a little bit of confusion, at least if you just read that one paragraph. I feel like it adds a little bit of confusion you don't need, unless this condition of being blessed by different saints is going to have some kind of purpose. Even if it's just, let's say, a powerful, you happen to be in the presence of a powerful fey noble, and they have some kind of, maybe, I don't know if they have, some kind of glamour or rune that lets them see auras or something, and they would see all the blessings of these saints because you have all your spells. Really neat stuff, but I'm curious if it's gonna pay off. Because if it's not gonna pay off, then I'm not sure. The distinction to me isn't worth it, I guess, if that makes sense. Ian says additional sounds like additional to me. All right. It would be nice if they just, I hear what you're saying, Ian, and I think I imagine that there aren't going to be so many shrines that if you manage to get there, to get to one, or the way to one, and you have all your spells, then you just get another one. But probably, given if you look at the page, they got room and they got room. They could probably spell it out just a little bit more, and they're not, it's not killing their layout or anything. But maybe the full version's got more going on. The key word is may. Oh, may, I see. There's probably a role. I imagine, Ian, that may in the whether they may be granted. I'm guessing there's some kind of table with a roll, or maybe, I don't know, but maybe not. But yes, there is some wiggle room for the referee in terms of the may. Ian says it sounds like DM Fiat. It could very well be. So we have I'll read all the spell names. I'm not going to read all the descriptions. So on rank 1. Oh, I will. Okay, I like this. So there's the name of the spell. Oh, okay, I see this. So that looks like, so I'm looking at this now, and it looks like we're going to have one unified spell list, maybe between arcane spells, not fairy spells, but arcane spells and holy spells. But the difference is that if you are casting you're casting a spell through a holy spell as opposed to the arcane spell, you don't use the spell name, you use the name of the prayer that has the saint associated with it. So maybe I won't read them all because it'll get too much. So for example, let's pick up rank 5 spell. The spell evil is associated with the Saint Good Enough, and the name of the prayer is Saint Good Enough's rebuke. So if you've gotten into a situation where you need to dispel evil and you're an arcane spellcaster, you might say, I cast dispel evil. Whereas if you're a cleric and you are casting the holy spell version, you would say, I don't know, I cast forth, or I cast forth Saint Good Enough's rebuke on you, evil person thing, right? Which is very cool because you get a lot of flavor. Now, of course, it means that if you're really getting into it, you're going to want to keep this table handy, because I can't imagine you memorize all these. There's going to be some bit of, if I'm the cleric character the player of a cleric character, and I say, I cast forth Saint Good Enough's rebuke upon that evil person. Then as the GM, I have to go like, well, what is that? What spell is that again? And they go, oh, that's Dispel Evil. So it's, really cool flavor. It does add a level of remove, I guess, or complexity to the spells. Small, but it's, I would say that at least reading it, to me, it's worth it because I love people to say, I bring forth St. Torfia's Respite as opposed to saying remove poison, which is awesome. Ian says, this is a great bit of world building. You get generic spell name, but also the saint and in-world name. This was a cool part of playing a cleric in 4th edition. I cast Flippity-Doo's Grace. Yes. I concur with that. Now let's look at the spells. Okay, so maybe they aren't sharing the spell list. Maybe they are just giving the generic spell name and the holy spell. I just wonder. So here's the one thing, Ian, I would wonder with you, if these are all just holy spells and they do not exist in the arcane spell list, which I first thought they did, or is this merely to give you what would be, let's say, is this simply to tell you what would be the OSE spell name? I wonder why not just have the names of the prayers. I wonder. There's probably reasons. I like it, but I wish that these had the they do have the prayer names. Maybe I kind of wish the prayer names were in bold and the spells were small. But I guess the reason it's not is that when you're probably looking at the spells in terms of their use, and as flavorful as the prayer names are, they don't really say much about them. Saint Benister's Word, until you reach some level of system mastery, probably isn't going to speak to you the same way that you can just look up and say, oh, I need protection from evil today. I need protection from evil. We're going to evil place. Okay, I'll grab it. What is it? Oh, it's St. Benister's Ward. So I get why they're doing it that way, but part of me wishes that they'd put the world building names more prominent. All right, finally, well, maybe not finally, though I think we're getting towards the bottom. Well, no, actually, we're only we're not that. Well, I think that a lot of this stuff's going to be lists, which maybe we'll be able to slide through. So we're on to equipment, part 4, equipment, services, and animals. A rich catalog of tools, gear, arms, mounts, vehicles, hounds, medicine, and tonics essential to adventuring within Dolmenwood. Extensive lists of tavern fare, ales, wines, spirits, and pipe leaves are also presented, providing respite to weary adventurers from the travails of the road. Finally, the services of taverns, mercenaries, and various other specialists are elucidated, along with guidelines for hiring retainers to accompany characters into the perilous wilds. Ian says, having played Worlds Without Number, you do have these flavorful world-specific spell names, and every single time I have to ask what the F the spell is. Yeah, I get that. As I'm thinking about it, I get that there are good, useful, practical reasons for having the generic spells. Because, yes, I would be the same way. I'd be like, all right, that's awesome, but what is it? So I'm not going to go through all these, but we have a bunch of hounds, which are cool. Bloodhounds, Dappers, Dolmen Pinchers, Langston Mastiffs, Lich Hounds, Piskers, Sealy Dogs, and Spook Hounds. I want to read the Lich Hound, and then that'll just be our exemplar for this section. Stocky, gray, wiry-furred hounds with upright pointed ears and narrow yellow eyes. Lich Hounds are bred by the church as companions for graveyard wardens and clerics of the Order of St. Cygnus. They're a small animal. They have animal intelligence, and they're neutral. They have 1 level, 12 hit dice, 12 armor class, 1 hit die of 8, 1d8 hit points, basically 4. They have some saves. They have a bite or a turning bark. They have a speed of 40, morale of 8, and they're worth 10 experience points. Fear no undead. Do not check resolve when in combat with undead monsters. I'm guessing resolve is that morale type check. And once per day, they have a turning bark. A Lich Hound may emit a baying that is terrifying to the undead. On a 2d6 roll of 7 or more, on a 2d6 roll of 7 or more, level 1 undead monsters are turned, and on a roll of 9 or more, level 2 monsters are turned. They say level 2 monster. I guess they mean monsters, or they mean just one monster. I'm going to say plural, that they mean a plural, that's a typo, but I'm not sure. If the baying succeeds, 2d4 undead monsters flee from the hound for 1 turn. Oh, I see. So it's basically, the first part is how many levels. It's basically your turn undead trick or thing. If they roll, but limited to level 1 or 2. So if they roll a 7 or higher, level 1 monsters, some number of level 1 monsters are affected. They roll 9 or more, some number of level 2 monsters are also turned. and then you pick 2d4. It doesn't say on this how they go. I think classically you have to turn the lesser undead before you turn greater undead. This doesn't say. So I guess GM's choice. Frederick says, gotta have a dog. Absolutely. And Ian says, I'm about to find the most useful page spread in the PDF. I'm guessing that's the pipe weed. These are very nice. They're just a great touch. I like integrating the pets, and I like that they have some different abilities. They're special. Pisker to detect fairies, Langston Mastiffs. I guess they can go crazy potentially if they fail the morale checks. Dolmen Pinchers can bring down prey. Dappers can mimic human speech. Sealy dogs can't speak, but they can understand Woldish and Sylvan. And then Spookhounds can smell undead. And you can also pick up some accessories like dog armor or feed. All right, here we go. This is Ian's favorite, pipe leaf. According to many a seasoned wayfarer, smoking a soothing leaf is second to none at easing the troubles of the road. And we have some pipes you can buy and a whole bunch of pipe leaves. I'm not going to go through all of these. I like the illustrations, by the way. They have sort of a little bit of an Adventure Time kind of vibe to it. But very thematic, fit in well with everything. We have an optional rule about smoking. The many pipe leaves listed in this section are assumed to simply add flavor to the campaign world without having any specific mechanical effect. Groups that wish the smoking of pipe leaf to take on a more functional and therefore perhaps more prominent role in the campaign may use the following rule. Quiet contemplation. When vexed by a problem, a character may sit down, get out their pipe, and spend an hour smoking in quiet contemplation or in debate with companions. If the hour passes undisturbed, the player may make an intelligence check. If several characters smoke and debate together, the most intelligent character makes the check with a +1 bonus per 2 companions, maximum of +2. If the check succeeds, the referee gives the player a clue about the problem being contemplated. What is pipe leaf? The origin and nature of pipe leaf are left to the referee's discretion. In some campaigns, pipe leaf may be tobacco as we know it in the real world. In others, it may be an entirely different plant native to the Dolmenwood region. And Ian says this is Gygax's polearm level of detail. It is very much. Obviously, there's a big Tolkien influence right here. Gandalf, at least once or twice, I think definitely takes to sitting down and smoking some of the halfling leaf to contemplate problems. So that's kind of where they get it from. I'm just going to read. Just one that came to me was Mummer's Farce. A finely shredded oak brown leaf with fibrous hairs. Favored by gamblers, its pungent nutmeg aroma lingers in the taverns of Dreg. And the effect is it inspires jollity and hijinks. And I'm guessing that effect is kind of role-playing wise, right? It's nothing mechanical happening. I like that the effect is really just the quiet contemplation and not that all these are giving bonuses and penalties, because I wouldn't want to turn pipe leaf into some kind of, mini game. I think it's really nice as being just a kind of a character building, world building kind of element. And I would definitely go with that quiet contemplation thing. I think I would just, here's the thing though. I think I would skip the intelligence check. I wouldn't even bother. If you want to spend an hour and because if you need a clue, so here's what I would think, right? So I really like this quiet contemplation. Why gate it behind an intelligence check? Because to me, what this quiet contemplation means is that you, in a sense, the players are stuck, right? You as the player, you're stuck. You don't know what to do. You don't know you feel like you must be missing something. Something's going on. So you decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to take this quiet contemplation. I'm going to spend an hour, and spending that hour in a game like OSE, and I'm presuming in Dolmenwood, which has material effects on what's happening in the world, an hour is meaningful. And I'm just looking for a way forward. I'm looking for maybe a piece of information that I forgot or I missed or something. I'm not going to gate it. You spend the hour, you smoke your leaf, I'll give you one. In fact, if you were in debate, I might even give you, if you have at least 2 companions with you, let's say, or something like that, I would give you 2. Like, this to me is you're ultimately saying to the GM, help, we need you. And so don't even worry about gating it behind a roll. Just give it to him. Just give it to him and and consider it like, yeah, this kind of moment. And if you're afraid that, well, look at that, they can just keep resting hours and getting hints, then you can make the hints small. No one's saying you have to resolve the giant mystery because they smoked an hour of pipe leaf, but you could say if it was a situation where they happen to miss the thing that you want them to find anyway, just like, hey man, there it is. You smoke your pipe weed, you turn over, oh yeah, you didn't turn the map on the other side where the little handwritten note is, or whatever, or you see the map in the sunlight and then it shows through the sun runes. No, not moon runes, sun runes, whatever it is. I would say I actually see no reason to gate that at all, but that's me. Obviously you can do what you like. Retainers, stalwart companions for journeys into dark places. Adventurers often require extra assistance when journeying into the unknown, whether a doughty fighter to guard the rear or an extra pair of hands to hold a torch against the dark. Such characters are classified as retainers. NPCs hired to accompany characters on their adventures. Limit per PC. Each retainer is in the employ of a specific PC acting under their orders. The maximum number of retainers that will work for a PC at any one time is 4, plus the character's charisma modifier. Locating potential retainers. Potential retainers may be located by frequenting inns and pubs or by paying to post notices of help wanted. Frequenting inns and pubs. Spending a night buying rounds and greasing palms and drinking establishments costs 50 gold pieces. Per attempt, there is a 3 in 6 chance of successfully locating applicants. Posting notices of help wanted. Spending a day posting notices in public places costs 25 gold pieces. Per attempt, there is a 2 in 6 chance of successfully locating applicants, who will apply at the specified location 1d4 days later. Repeated searches. Each method of locating applicants may only be tried periodically, depending on the size of the settlement. In hamlets and villages, each method may be used once a month. In small towns, once a week. In large towns, twice a week. In cities, once a day. Terrence says that smoking that pipe weed, eating my second breakfast, just thinking about mysteries. Yes, sir. What a great way to spend your day. And then we've got some tables here. Adventure class by kindred, adventure kindred, applicants by settlement size. So I guess I skipped a part. When a search for a potential retainer succeeds, you roll on the applicant table. Great. Townsfolk are everyday folk without a class that are willing to join an adventuring party, often used as torchbearers or porters. So basically they don't need any particular skills, but they are just regular folks. Once you start, in hamlets, you can only find townsfolk. Once you get to villages and above, you might run into adventurers. Adventurers are independent level 1 adventurers of a specific class. Most applicants are of the dominant kindred in the settlement. For other applicants, the referee may optionally roll on the kindred table. You roll a 1d20 on the class by kindred table for what class they are. When an adventurer is successfully hired, their basic game statistics should be established. Retainers who serve PCs for a longer duration may be fleshed out as full characters using the standard character creation procedure, and then they'll get some starting gear. Offering wages. Once an applicant has been located, the hiring PC must explain what the job entails and offer them a certain wage. Townsfolk will want a daily rate of pay, while adventurers will want a share of any treasure recovered. And then you basically have a table of wages with what modifiers depending on what you ask, and then a label of generosity ranging from mean to lavish. Applicant's reaction. The applicant's reaction to the offer is determined by rolling on the hiring reactions table, modified as follows: charisma, reputation, generosity, and bonus payments. And then you roll on another table, and the reaction can go from angry refusal all the way to keen acceptance, which adds a bonus to loyalty. We have some box text on shares of treasures. Fractional shares of treasure are calculated by dividing the treasure by the total number of shares. For example, a party consisting of 5 PCs who receive full shares plus 1 retainer who's paid a half share discovered 2,750 gold pieces of treasure. The total is divided by 5.5. 5 full shares plus 1 half share. 500 gold pieces. Thus, each PC gains 500 gold pieces, and the retainer gains 250 gold pieces. Retainer loyalty. A retainer's loyalty rating affects their willingness to stick by PCs in the face of danger. Loyalty is initially equal to 7 plus the hiring character's charisma modifier, but may be adjusted as follows. Bonuses: saving a retainer from danger or granting generous treasure rewards may increase loyalty. Penalties: ill treatment of a retainer or lack of treasure may decrease loyalty. Loyalty checks. Circumstances may arise that test a retainer's loyalty to their employer. For example, an enemy may try to bribe a retainer to betray their employer, or a retainer may be tempted to flee from a situation of unexpectedly great peril. Rolling a loyalty check. In such situations, the referee should roll 2d6. If the roll is lower than or equal to the retainer's loyalty, the check succeeds and the retainer remains true to the hiring PC. Unsuccessful adventures. Optionally, the referee may also make loyalty checks following unsuccessful adventures. If such a check fails, the retainer decides to leave the PC's employ and seek their fortunes elsewhere. Retainer advancement. Townsfolk. As non-adventurers without a class, townsfolk do not earn experience points and do not gain levels. The referee may sometimes allow long-serving townsfolk to be promoted to a suitable adventuring class. Adventurers earn experience points and advance in level in the same way as player characters, but all XP a retainer earns is halved. This is because retainers generally follow instructions from PCs rather than being directly involved in decision-making. That's a key point, and I hope GMs, referees take that to heart. I always have the retainers look to the PCs first to see what to do and not act, and that's including combat, which sometimes means the retainers in my game will miss the first round of combat. If they happen to roll first, they're kind of looking around. If there weren't any standing orders, like the PC saying if the guy shows up, attack, then they're going to wait to see what the PCs do, because the last thing those guys want to do is they go into attack, and then the PCs decide to bail out and run, and suddenly they're basically holding up the rear for their boss's escapes. And that's just how I do it. And certainly with other situations, the retainers are waiting to see what the PCs do. So I like that they mentioned that specifically. Gaining levels. When a retainer advances in level and reaches equal or greater level than the hiring PC, they will typically leave employment to go on adventures of their own. Right. Part 5, adventuring. Procedures, rules, advice, and guidelines for running adventures in the wilds of Dolmenwood and the weird subterranean realms beneath. The most frequently used rules, skill checks, ability checks, saving throws, and attack rolls are described, along with guidelines for handling common adventuring hazards and challenges. Easy to follow procedures for travel, camping, dungeon exploration, downtime and settlements, encounters, and combat round out the game's rules. I'm quickly running out of water, and I don't know what I'm going to do about it. Preparing for an adventure. Advice for players on successful adventuring. Oh, this is going to be good. I really appreciate these sections, and I wish more games had them. Before leaving the comfort of the fireside and heading into the wilds, certain preparatory steps are essential for successful adventuring. The adventuring party. The first and most fundamental requirement for going adventuring is the gathering of a group of like-minded companions willing to venture forth into the unknown. Typically, a party consists of one character per player, created as described earlier on. But the following points should also be borne in mind. Size. The ideal size of a group is between 6 and 8. 8 characters, large enough to confront the challenges of an adventure, while not so large as to become disorganized. If not enough PCs are present, the players may wish to hire retainers. The referee may also allow experienced players to run 2 PCs at once. It is wise for a party to consist of a mix of characters of different adventuring classes. Combat-focused characters are essential for protecting the group from danger, while other classes each have magic or other special abilities which are useful for handling different situations that may arise in an adventure. As new PCs join play, the levels of the characters in the party may diverge. It is recommended that characters more than 4 levels apart should adventure separately, as challenges and rewards suitable to characters of greatly differing levels do not match. All right, now we have some notes on splitting the party into box text. It is usually wise for characters to stick together when adventuring, as there is strength in numbers. However, there are times when certain characters may wish to separate off from the main party. For example, 1 or 2 stealthy characters may wish to scout ahead of the main group. When this happens, each group should be treated by the referee as a separate party with separate surprise rolls, wandering monster checks, etc. That's some wise advice. Excuse me. Okay. Player roles. To make the running of the game as smooth as possible, it can be helpful to assign certain important roles to individual players. The following roles are common. Player roles may be assigned on a permanent basis if players wish, or may be rotated between sessions. So you have the caller. Interesting that this is in here, because I don't know that many people use this. It doesn't actually seem to be common. I mean, it was common-ish when it showed up in BX, but is it common, folks who play OSE? Are you guys using the caller usually? One player may be assigned the role of group spokesperson responsible for informing the referee about the actions and movements of the party as a whole. Delegating this role to one player, rather than having each player informing the referee about their PC's individual actions, can speed up play, especially with large groups. Party leader. The caller's character usually takes on the role of party leader and should thus have a high charisma and be located near to the front of the party. The designation of caller can optionally change during play. For example, the character addressing monsters in an encounter may become the caller. Chronicler. One player may be assigned to make notes on the party's adventures, including monsters and NPCs encountered, battles fought, clues discovered, and mysteries to be unraveled. The chronicle can be invaluable in recalling events of previous game sessions, especially when some time has passed between sessions. In the longer campaigns, it will form a memorable account of the party's epic adventures. Ian says they've never had a caller, but definitely had mapper, quartermaster, and note taker. Yeah, I would almost suggest, just as a practical thing, not anything to do with Dolmenwood particularly, have multiple people take notes. Because unless you got someone who's super good at taking notes, you're bound to miss something if you're one person. If you have multiple people taking it, then you're probably going to get covered. And I can't count the number of times where I've been playing in a group and we were lucky that we had multiple people taking notes, because maybe I'm taking notes and I miss something because I'm distracted or I'm talking or something else is going on. Or I've got the notes, somebody else missed it because they were doing something. I mean, maybe some of the, I guess, overlap will be gone if you're using a caller, because if you're the caller, you're probably not going to be the chronicler, so the chronicler can pay more attention while the caller is talking. But still, I think it's invaluable to have multiple people as opposed to having one person take sole responsibility for noting. Mapper. One player should create a map of the areas being explored based on the referee's descriptions. Details such as monsters or traps encountered, clues to puzzles, or interesting unexplored areas may be noted on the map as it is drawn. Maps may optionally be treated as in-game items created by and in the possession of a specific character. In this case, maps must be treated with great care in order to prevent loss or damage in case any harm should come to the character carrying them. I like that concept a lot. Quartermaster. One player may be designated to keep track of the party's provisions and light sources as well as any treasure acquired. Yep, that's a good one too. Planning for adventure. Before starting an adventure, it is wise for players to think through various aspects of their planned expedition. The following areas are especially worthy of consideration. The adventure objective. While it is perfectly possible for the party to set off on the road out of town and simply wander at random, it is usually preferable to have a specific adventuring objective in mind. For example, players may decide to follow up on a rumor heard in a settlement, investigate a mysterious feature encountered on a previous adventure, try to defeat a previously encountered monster, or attempt to locate a certain area of the wood or of a dungeon. Preparation. Once an objective has been established, players should consider whether any special resources are required. Equipment. Adding additional equipment should be purchased in advance as needed. For example, characters may need to stock up on rations for a journey into the wilds, or may need additional torches or lantern oil for an expedition into a dungeon. Retainers. If the party is small or lacks characters of certain classes important to the adventure, the players may consider seeking retainers. Spellcasting characters should consider the needs of the adventure when selecting which spells to memorize. Players should make these decisions as a group to avoid carrying redundant equipment and ensure a balanced selection of spells. I think a lot of this, at least the vibe of it, if not the exact thing, but some of this prep stuff seems right out of the, was it the first edition Player's Handbook that had that appendix where it gave all this great advice for players? They definitely are grabbed. I feel like this preparation thing is even more than just the spirit of those, and a lot of the substance is, not word for word, but is pulling from that, which is a good thing, because I thought that was a really great element addition to the rules. That is a help, and I think this is good too. Marching order. The players should determine the normal arrangement of characters when exploring. This is known as the party's marching order. For example, players may decide to move in a two-column formation with well-armored characters in front, weaker characters in the middle, and a rear guard. The group may define different standard marching orders for common situation, e.g. standard situations, e.g. standard exploration, combat, opening doors, searching, etc. Dividing treasure. The spoils of an adventure may be divided between surviving characters in whatever way the players agree on. It is usual to agree on this before an adventure begins. The following is a suggested approach. Non-magical treasure is typically divided evenly between player characters. Retainers may be allocated a reduced share, as agreed during hiring. On magic items, the players must decide which character keeps each item. One method for doing this is for each player to roll a die and compare the results. The highest rolling player gets to pick a magic item first. The second highest rolling player gets the next pick, and so on. Or, and this doesn't always work, but I would definitely say is if there is an item that works particularly well with a certain character or class, let them have it. Don't end up in a situation, and I've seen this happen many times, where an item comes up that is clearly best suited to one character, and someone else is just holding on to it, and they won't make any trades. They just won't do the thing, and just like, okay, we get it. Like I played in a game, and I had my halfling thief, and this cloak of elven kind comes up, and this other player had it, and I was doing all the scouting, doing all the stuff, and I'm thinking like, man, this cloak sure be nice, sure be helpful. And the other person wasn't really using it, but they were just would not, trade with me, wouldn't just hand it over. I mean, they finally did, but it was like it took just an inordinate amount of time and effort, and like and me stumbling about when I was like, man, that cloak would have made this super easy, or would have just given me this, just would have helped, which helps the group, and they just didn't do it. So, don't do that. Don't be that person that's like, oh man, I got this thing. And even though, yeah, the fighter would really be great with it and they're up front where they could really use it. Nope, I'm going to hold on to it. Don't be that. Don't be that player. Team game, folks. Team game. Adventuring advice. Following are some basic words of advice on how players can maximize their enjoyment of the game and the chance of their characters surviving and thriving. Work as a team. Above all, players should cooperate to ensure the survival of the group and success in adventuring. While characters may not always see eye to eye, and players may disagree on the best course of action, only those who work together will find success. This is especially important when characters are low level, as individual characters are unlikely to survive the dangers of the wilds alone. Think outside the box. Kindreds and classes grant a number of special abilities which are useful during adventures. However, more often than not, hazards, challenges, and foes cannot be overcome simply by using abilities listed on the character sheet. Players should carefully investigate the environment, make creative use of equipment, form clever plans, and devise harebrained schemes. Right. So there's definitely that old song we hear, on again and again, but it's not bad. It's good. Is that you need to think outside your sheet. Use time wisely. Every moment that passes during an adventure presents a chance of the party being noticed by malignant monsters. Resources such as rations and light sources dwindle. Party members tire and suffer injuries. Wise players do not waste time when adventuring. Also very true. Avoid unnecessary combat. There is an element of risk anytime a character's fate is determined by a roll of the dice. Man, they should highlight that and bold it. This is especially acute during combat, where a die roll can make the difference between life and death. Players are advised to avoid direct confrontations where possible. If combat cannot be avoided, players should use reconnaissance, planning, and tactics to tip the chances in their favor. Yes, 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 and yes. Know when to back out. Players should keep a careful eye on the party's strength and resources. If these dwindle too far, a retreat to safety is advisable to recuperate and restock. Likewise, if combat turns against the party, players should not be afraid to flee. Tarnished pride is preferable to an ignoble death in the maw of a ravening monster. Also very true. Encumbrance. Rules governing how much gear and treasure adventurers can haul around. Now, there's a lot here on this stuff. All right, I'm going to give a quick pause because I really need to go get something to drink. Otherwise, I'm going to get parched out the wazoo. So I'm going to turn my thing off for a moment and pause, and I'll be back in like 30 seconds. I swear it. Oh, wait, that didn't work. Turning off my... Hold on a minute. Let me try that again. All right. There we go. I think that ought to have worked. All right, be back in a second. Hold down the fort. Okay, there we go. I got a drink, and I got a backup drink. So let's see if I can bring. I don't know, something's going on with my Stream Deck. It's not doing the thing I want it to do. Need to do the thing I'm asking you to do, Stream Deck. Just weird. All right, there we go. 51 seconds, not bad. All right, well, I tried. I tried to be as fast as possible. There's a lot here. It is super hot, and man, my throat was drying out. Encumbrance. Rules governing how much gear and treasure adventurers can haul around. In the perilous wilds, an adventurer's equipment can make the difference between life and death. A rope can prevent falling into a deathly chasm. A burning torch can fend off wild beasts. And a humble fishing rod can provide a meal to fill hungry bellies. Characters must carefully consider the equipment they take with them when adventuring, as each person is only able to carry so much. Each item carried is at once a burden and a potential lifesaver in times of peril. Two approaches to determining how much characters can carry are presented here. One based on tracking the total weight of items carried, the other based on tracking the number of items carried. The referee should decide which to use, and it should be applied to all characters. So the first method here is weight encumbrance. This encumbrance system is based on tracking the individual weights of items carried, giving a detailed and fairly realistic overview of each character's load. The total weight of the character's gear is tracked, as coins are the most common form of treasure found by adventurers. All weights are measured in coins. This is kind of the old school style. 10 coins are equivalent to 1 pound. The equipment lists note the weight in coins of all weapons, armor, and items of adventuring gear. Miscellaneous gear, excluding weapons and armor, may optionally be counted as a total of 100 coins in weight. The weight of treasure carried by an adventurer should also be tracked. And then maximum load. The maximum load any character can carry is 1,600 coins of weight. Characters carrying more than this cannot move. A character's speed is determined by the total weight they are carrying. And there's a table. So it coins, your speed's 40, and then it starts to drop off from there. Finally, it's 10, and if you go over 1,600, it's zilch. The carrying capacity of mounts and vehicles is listed in coins under, you guessed it, horses and vehicles. We have some box texts. Basic weight encumbrance, which is an optional rule. This option may be used by groups who prefer a simpler encumbrance system based on weight carried. The weight of armor, weapons, and adventuring gear is not tracked and does not count towards a character's maximum load. The weight of treasure carried is tracked to make sure that the character's maximum load is not exceeded. The maximum load of treasure any character can carry is 1,600 coins of weight. Characters carrying more than this cannot move. And that character's speed is determined by the type of armor that they are wearing and whether they are carrying a significant amount of treasure. So in this case, your armor and weapons don't count against your encumbrance, but your speed is based somewhat on your armor as well as the encumbrance. So if you started off in the one system, which is weight encumbrance, up to 400 coins, and I don't know how much what your armor would be, that would be speed 40. That's the same as basically having no armor on and no treasure. That would also be 40. Whereas if you're wearing medium and heavy armor, your starting speed without any treasure is all the way down to 20. But I don't know how that would figure out. Presumably, medium or heavy armor would end up being about somewhere in that 600 to 800 coins range, which would then put you at 20 also. But I'm not sure. I would guess that they'd be about the same because they wouldn't want to make one much more desirable. It's just kind of what you're tracking is different. Weight of common treasures. We get a table there. Slot encumbrance. This encumbrance system is based on your gear slots, giving a simple and somewhat abstract overview of each character's load. Each item carried generally occupies one gear slot. The more gear slots are occupied, the more burdened a character is and the slower the speed. Equipped items are 9 slots. Characters have 9 slots for equipped items. That is anything that the character is wearing, holding, and actively using, or has ready to use at short notice. Armor worn, shields or weapons held, sheathed weapons, items in a belt pouch. Character cannot carry more than 9 slots of equipped items. Sacks and backpacks have 8 slots for stowed items. That is items packed away in the container. Character can wear 1 backpack and carry up to 2 sacks, each occupying 1 hand. When carrying a sack, the character cannot carry a weapon, shield, lantern, or other object in that hand. In combat, retrieving a stowed item optionally takes 1 round. Man, that's way too fast. I would not allow you to retrieve anything that's stowed in your bag during combat. If you're in under attack, someone's going to explain to me how I've got something in the sack, and I'm going to try to put the sack down, open up the sack, root around in the sack, and pull out the item all the while some goblin's hacking at my back. Nah, it's not going to happen. I would say it takes at least a minute to pull anything out, which would put it outside of. You could kind of get it in a sense for free during an exploration turn, but not inside combat. But that's me, and I'm a mean old GM. So what are you going to do? Ian says a slot encumbrance is, I guess he's doing chef's kiss and not like muja. So he likes the slot. Likes the slot system. Determining speed. A character's speed is determined by the number of occupied gear slots as followed. The number of occupied equipped item slots determines the character's base speed. Each sack or backpack with more than 4 occupied slots reduces the character's speed by 10. And I'm guessing you're going to have another table here, and it's going to probably factor to about the same. We have some box text on items and gear slots. It's got a table in it with the items and then how many gear slots they take up. So heavy armor takes up 3 gear slots. Medium armor takes up 2. Melee, 2-handed melee weapons take up 2. Bulky items take up 2. So on and so forth. We have some box text on dropping items. When a character discovers large treasure hoards, they may have to drop items, abandoning adventuring gear in order to stuff their sacks with gold. Likewise, in desperate circumstances, such as when fleeing enemies, characters may choose to drop items to lighten their load. Weapons, shields, and even stuffed sacks or backpacks may be dropped to increase the character's speed. Yeah, I mean, it seems obvious, but I guess I'm no issue with them spelling it out. Travel. The basic procedures for traveling and exploring in the wilds of Dolmenwood. Travel procedure per day. So this is a box text right at the front. First, weather. The referee determines the day's weather using the tables in the Dolmenwood campaign book. Second, the players decide on their course of travel for the day. Third, the referee determines whether the party gets lost depending on the terrain. Fourth, the referee makes a check for a daytime random encounter. Fifth, the referee describes the terrain passed through and any sites of interest that the party comes across, asking players for their actions as required. If monsters are encountered, follow the procedures described in encounters, right? Which I guess is on 166. I'm assuming of that book and not of this book. 6, end of day. If still in the wilds, the party sets up camp. The referee updates time records with special attention to rations, spell durations, and the party's need to rest. When traveling overland through Dolmenwood, time is tracked in days. Adventurers may at times follow useful pathways connecting settlements, but will often find themselves traveling in the wild woods. Actively maintained roads, roads are actively maintained roads. Parties following a road can travel quickly and have no risk of getting lost. Tracks are smaller paths which are seldom frequented and sporadically maintained. Parties following a track can travel quickly but have a small risk of getting lost. Finally, traveling wild is for all travel off of tracks and roads is classified as traveling wild. All travel off tracks and roads is classified as traveling wild. The speed of travel and chance of getting lost are determined by the type of terrain being traversed. The referee's map of Dolmenwood, which is provided in the Dolmenwood, or I guess twice, Dolmenwood and Dolmenwood campaign setting, is based on a hex grid with each hex being 6 miles across. When characters travel through the wood, the referee tracks their progress on the hex map. The players may also wish to keep a map of their own, making notes on hexes as they explore. Rather than tracking the exact time spent traveling or the precise distances traversed, travel in Dolmenwood is abstracted into a simple system of daily travel points representing the time taken for various travel actions. All right, so they're using a travel point system. I've seen before in various things, but let's see how they do it here. A party has travel points each day equal to its speed divided by 5. As shown in the travel points per day table, any excess travel points not used by the end of the day are lost. So if your party speed is 40, your points per day are normally 8 as for normal travel and 12 if you for a forced march. A normal day of travel, whether on roads, tracks, or the wild, is assumed to last 12 hours, with 8 hours spent traveling and 4 hours spent resting, preparing meals, eating, and setting up and taking down camp, and so forth. A party may push itself to travel extra distance in a day, gaining a 50% increase in travel points. This requires a 16-hour travel day, including 12 solid hours of travel. Following a forced march, characters must rest for a full day or become exhausted. The referee tracks the party's position along roads or tracks as they travel. Each 6 miles traversed has a cost of 2 travel points, unaffected by the type of terrain or the number of hexes passed through. The party may explore any feature along the roadside in hexes they pass through. All right, so essentially if you're on roads, it's got a fixed cost. However, off roads, or roads or tracks, I should say. If you're into the wilds, then you get a table that gives you the costs broken down by terrain types, as well as some restrictions, and then chances of an encounter are getting lost. Terrence says the wild woods always makes him think of weasels and ferrets and stoats. Weasels and ferrets and stoats. Oh my. Weasels and ferrets and stoats. Oh my. That would definitely made a different Wizard of Oz if it was the cowardly stoat instead of the cowardly lion. The referee tracks the party's position on the hex map, noting the current hex they are in. The terrain types table lists the travel points cost to enter an adjacent hex based on its terrain type. Once the party has paid the travel point cost to enter a hex, they may explore any non-hidden features in that hex without further expenditure of travel points. So basically, you can move around to your heart's content within a hex. If the party does not have sufficient travel points to enter an adjacent hex, the referee should note how many travel points they have expended, how many remain to be expended the following day to enter the hex. All right, so I think I do need an example for that, because I thought you just got refreshed travel points at the end of the day. But here they have a note that you should note how many travel points they have expended. So the example is, a party is traveling from a farmland hex towards an adjacent hex consisting of boggy terrain. That's 3 travel points cost to enter. They have 2 travel points remaining for the day, insufficient to enter the bog hex, so must make camp in the farmland hex. The following day, they spend the remaining 1 travel point to enter the bog hex. I see. That's what? So, all right, hold on. So travel points says any excess travel points that are not used by the end of the day are lost. But this one seems to be suggesting that you can invest them. So you're traveling to the bog. You have 2 remaining. So they make camp presumably at the edge of the bog or somewhere on the way to the bog they can't get in. The example is suggesting that they can kind of spend those points to enter the bog on the next day, which just seems to me that they're not lost. So I don't know. I wonder if they changed something, but I feel like we're getting 2 slightly different versions. I feel like the first one, it seems to suggest that you had 2 points left over, you made camp. Those 2 points are gone. It's still 3 points to enter the swamp. Whereas the example seems to say that you had your 2 points at the end, you could put them towards next day's travel. So now you only need 1 point to enter the swamps. If you disagree with me on my interpretation or these dueling interpretations, let me know. But I will move on. Mounts and vehicles provide convenient means of travel with heavy loads, but become inconvenient when characters are traveling wild. A mounted party has a speed 40 for 8 travel points per day. While some mounts have speed faster than 40, they can only move at this rate for short bursts. A party traveling with a cart or wagon has a speed 30 for 6 travel points per day. Mounts and vehicles can travel freely along roads and tracks, but can only travel wild in certain terrain types. The terrain types table lists which types of terrain mounts and vehicles may enter, with mounts only able to be led, i.e. not ridden, in certain types of terrain. I would say that I don't know that tracks... What do they say as a track is specifically? So I feel like for me, if a track is kind of more like a trail, the wagons are, I would say, get kind of taken off the table. But maybe their tracks are more expansive than my version of their idea of tracks are more expansive than my idea of tracks. Searching hexes. Some hexes on the Dolmenwood campaign map contain hidden features which will not be noticed by parties simply wandering through the area. Hidden features can be found by searching a hex, requiring extra time and travel points. The terrain types table lists the travel point cost to search a hex based on its terrain type. Searching reveals all hidden features in a hex. Once a hidden feature has been located, it can be found again without searching. So basically, you don't have to roll any dice. It's just you have to spend the time and the travel points to search. And I wonder how that would work. So I guess I wonder, this is where a little bit of the confusion for me comes in. So going back to their example, the party is traveling from traveling through a farmland hex. They've got 2 travel points remaining. So let's say instead of in their example, they go into the bog hex the next day, and they're able to 2 points and then invest it in traveling into the bog, so it only costs 1 point the next day. What if instead they wanted to search that farm hex the next day? They change their mind. Oh, we decide to search instead. Do they get to have those 2 points available for that, or are they then lost? I'd like to know. Inquiring minds like to know. Once again, I want to know. Characters must rest for 1 day per week of travel or become exhausted. And then we have losing direction. We already covered following a road, following a track. Traveling wild depends on the terrain type. And then we're not getting the effects of getting lost. Those will be covered in the Dolmenwood campaign book. And then finally, wandering monsters. One check for wandering monsters is made each day. If characters camp in the wild, a second check is made at night. The chance of an encounter occurring depends on the type of terrain being traveled through. The Dolmenwood campaign book includes tables for determining the type of creatures encountered. Wandering monsters are encountered at 4d6 times 30 feet away. If either side is surprised, this is reduced to 1d4 times 30 feet. So they are keeping the kind of longer ranges for wilderness monster encounters. Part 6, Secrets of Dolmenwood. This is referees only. Referees only. Auga, auga, auga. So if you are planning to play in a Dolmenwood campaign and you don't want to be spoiled in any way, I would suggest exiting stage right. So this is your only warning. After I read this, which I'm presuming isn't going to say too much, and I move on to the next page, which is probably going to have more substance, I shan't warn you again. A small sampling of content from the epic tome of referees lore, aka the Dolmenwood campaign setting. One of the 7 major factions, the Longhorn nobility, is presented in full, along with 3 detailed NPCs. An excerpt from one of the 12 settlements, the town of Lankshorn, ruled by the wicked Lord Malbleet, is provided, including descriptions of 6 locations and 4 NPCs. 4 of the Dolmenwood campaign setting book's 200 hexes are presented as an example of the weird, fantastic locations that Dolmenwood is packed with. Finally, the full Dolmenwood encounter tables and selection of magic item or weapons are revealed. All right, last chance. Turn back, turn back. Longhorn nobility. The Bregel noble houses, which have ruled the High Wold since ancient times. So we have a faction overview. Houses Ramius, Merkin, and Malbleet. 3 Bregel nobles currently rule over large portions of the High Wold. The powerful and respected Lord Ramius, the belligerent Lord Merkin, and the sadistic Lord Malbleet. And we get one nice thing is we have sort of an overview map of Dolmenwood, and that with highlighted where these domains come in. So Ramius piloted Red October and then landed in Dolmenwood and set up their domain. I wonder if Lord Merkin wears a Merkin. Look up Merkin, not spelled the same, Merkin. Look it up, folks. It should give you a giggle. Earliest mortals in Dolmenwood. The origins of Bregels are lost in antiquity. They have lived in the environs of Dolmenwood for as long as any records show, and were the first mortal kindred to dwell under the frost-rimed boughs in ancient days when the Cold Prince ruled supreme. The Longhorns hold their distant forebears to be those bold few Bregels who ventured into the ice-clad courts of the Cold Prince and pledged him their fealty, desiring the elevation of their own kind. These early days among the highborn of Faerie instilled in the Longhorns a love of all that is noble, a proclivity which drives them to this day. In addition to their political might, Longhorns possess a degree of sorcerous power surmised to be derived from their ancient dealings with the Cold Prince. The gaze of the Longhorns is greatly feared among the ranks of human aristocracy. It is common for petty lords to enlist sorceress aid when required to attend the court of a Longhorn. Following the betrayal of the Droon by the female Longhorn Hregel some 1,500 years ago, a bitter hatred between Droon and Bregels has smoldered. The Longhorn aristocrats are counted among the noble houses loyal to the Duke of Brackenwold, ruling the High Wold side by side with humans. Intermarriage between Bregel and human nobles is not unheard of in the High Wold, though the offspring of such unions are usually feeble of mind. The Longhorn nobles and their subjects are nominally aligned within the church, or with the church, though in truth their loyalty is born out of political convenience rather than devotion. It is sometimes noted that the feelings may be mutual. No Bregel saints exist within the pantheon of the blessed. Lord Merkin has eyes on the lands of his southerly neighbors, the human house Nodlock, and is amassing troops near the border. Only the protection of Lord Ramius prevents outright war. 22 years ago, unearthed genealogical documents purportedly revealed Lord Malbleet as the rightful head of House Ramius, through the line of his mother, Lady Shankhollow. Lord Ramius's interpretation of the documents naturally differed, and a feud ensued, growing quickly to violence. Baron Hogwarsh, then a mere youth, intervened, ruling that the lands of House Ramius should be divided. Malbleet was granted the eastern portion and Ramius the western. Terrence says, Lord Merkin the short and curly. Indeed. The names are kind of interesting, because I have to say, just again, this is just my own preference. I don't love when the names all have to be kind of riffs on the species. So I get that these are kind of goatish. So you have goatish names. I kind of find myself rolling my eyes a little bit. Like, I really like Ramius, and Merkin is fine. Malbleet, it I don't know how tongue-in-cheek. I mean, I guess maybe it's supposed to be tongue-in-cheek, but it just lends it kind of a goofier tone than maybe I want. But then we're dealing with fairy and stuff, so I get it. But you know, I kind of think at some point, for me personally, I would want to move away from those kind of names, or I would find myself bumping up against the ceiling of in some ways how I could take a campaign seriously if all the names are these sort of goofy plays on goat-isms, if you will. It's obviously a very personal, your miles may vary sort of thing. I just want to acknowledge that up front. The Longhorn nobility's schemes. The Longhorn nobles are greatly occupied with bitter infighting, with petty familial rivalries amplified to blood feud and vendetta. The art of cannily is still alive. Each noble wishes to achieve dominance over his kin, whether by political subjugation, warfare, or sorcery. The Longhorn nobles scheming to outdo one another largely hinders the advancement of their shared goals. At many points in history has an imperious human noble of one kind or another emerged to challenge the Longhorns' rights to dominion in the High Wold. Always have the tenacious Longhorns prevailed, but the risk of outside meddling in the tradition of goat rulership in the region remains. Collectively, but primarily as individuals, the Longhorns seek to reverse the trend of the gradual human domination of the High Wold and extend their rule further south. Each of the nobles has his eye on the courts of High Hankel and the throne of foolish Baron Hogwarsh. The Longhorns hate the Droon for their power and arrogance and covet the lands of Dwelmferg, which the sorcerers rule. They seek to eradicate the Droon from the High Wold and, ideally, from the whole of Dolmenwood. And now we have this, we have the map overview with the enclaves of Longhorn nobility, Colstow Keep, Garnax Tower, the hamlet of Galblight, Castle Everdusk, Red Wraith Manor, the hamlet of Shag's End, the town of Lankshorn, and the village of Dreg. I'm not going to read through those descriptions. And it looks like we have, which they're not linked here, but I'm guessing they're going to link up in the full book. It seems like we have hex coordinates in parenthetically presented. Members and organizations. Bregel nobles, the rulers of the noble houses, Lords Malbleet and Ramius, Longhorns of ancient stock, proud and arrogant, and the upstart half-Bregel, Lord Merkin. The Bregel elite consisting of the Longhorn courtiers and knights under the command of nobles, those are the Longhorn elite, and finally the Shorthorns, members of the Brego serving class that fill the roles of household servants, cooks, messengers, groundskeepers, hunters, guards, and soldiers. And we have some noble Brego names, and now we get some noble NPCs. I shall read. How many do we have? We have 3, right? Yep. All right. I'm going to roll a 6-sided die, divide it by 2, see which noble to read because I can't decide. I got a 6, I believe. Yep, a 6, which divided by 3 gives us Lord Shadgor Ramius, a venerable longhorn nobleman with snow white fur, yellow eyes with red pupils, and a curly beard down his ample belly. Ramius dresses in thickly layered regal robes embroidered with thorny roses. Cold, shrewd, disdainful of social mores, brilliant strategist and a wise ruler. Red pupils enlarge and contract when he is displeased. His speech is that of sweet rasping, well-considered, woldish, caprice. His speech is sweet, rasping, and well-considered. He speaks woldish, caprice, gaff, old woldish, and basic Sylvan. He desires to keep Lord Malbleed in check by playing the Droon against him, to cultivate the trust of the Duke of Brackenwold, and be granted the barony of the Highwold, supplanting the reckless Baron Hogwash. Failing that, to wed his daughter Beryld to the Baron, to enslave that monster known as the Bicorn, which also has a hex designation, and use it as a beast of war. He possesses the Thorned Eye, a gold medallion whose curious shape is featured on the Ramius coat of arms. One who wears the medallion can conjure a 15-foot radius area of magical darkness for 6 turns thrice per day and can harm mortals by striking at their shadows. He is a widower with 3 sons and 4 daughters, including his heir, Lady Beryld. Ramius is the elder half-brother of Lord Malbleed. He has a standing army of shorthorns and humans commanded by his sons, groundsmen, cooks, butlers, etc. He's located at Castle Everdusk, ancestral home of House Ramius. And he's got some combat stats. Cool, and cool. Groovy, as they say. Now we have a sample town. I love the map style here of the town. It's got that like a sort of medieval vibe, but also a little bit almost, I don't know, like a tapestry or quilt kind of thing to it, which is great. This is Lankshorn, a high-wold market town on the edge of the wild, goat-ruled woods. It has a hex designation, which doesn't work here, but it looks like this would be clickable in the full document. A bustling town of well-kept, stone-built houses clustered around a tall, steepled church and a cobbled market square. At the rear of the town, a slope rises towards Dolmenwood, which looms ominously, a reminder of Langshorn's position on the verge of the wild. So it's a small town with 1,100 inhabitants, mostly consisting of local, curly-haired folk of high woldish origin who have made their livings in the town for many generations. A number of shorthorn Bregos also dwell in Lankshorn. It's ruled by the Goat Lord Malbleed and the Burkmaster Baldric, Malbleed's representative in the town, a mayor of sorts. That's Burkmaster Baldric. Religion. As the old and well-loved church of St. Pastory, located proudly in the town center, attests, the people in Lankshorn are devout followers of the Pleuratine Church. Lankshorners do not, however, see any contradiction in believing both the tenets of the church and the jumble of quaint superstitions that they maintain. The northernmost settlement in the High Wold, Lankshorn lies within a bow shot of the forest border, acting as one of the two main thresholds into Dolmenwood, the other being Castle Brackenwold in the east. 22 years ago, a feud among the nobles of House Ramius led to an abrupt reshaping of the traditional domain boundaries in the High Wold. It was thus that Lankshorn was wrested overnight from the domain of Lord Ramius and became part of the newly established domain of Lord Malbleed. Lankshorners take great pride in the customs of Brego lordship over their town, regarding this as a perfectly normal state of affairs. The increasingly brazen cruelty of Lord Malbleed is, however, leading to unease in Lankshorn. Some folks speak of petitioning the Baron Hogwash to intervene and replace Malbleed. Others note that it was Hogwash who was responsible for Malbleed's appointment as Lord of Lankshorn in the first place. Over many generations, the humans and Bregals of Langshorn have partially interbred. Most Langshorners show no evidence of this mixed heritage, but the occasional goat-like feature can be noted among the human townsfolk. And then we have a table for that. In Langshorn, ancient pagan beliefs are blended with the strictures of the church, forming an idiosyncratic mass of folk belief and superstition. Some examples, superstitions that adventurers may come across are listed below, but many more exist. PCs who transgress these edicts are likely to encounter an incredulous or frosty reception from the locals. And I will just read one of these, but I will roll a d6 to determine which. On the floor and cocked. Number 4, Crunchy Frog. Bringing a sword into a dwelling without first dousing the blade with water will bring misfortune upon the household. That's a good one. Standard equipment and vehicles are available in Langshorn at the normal price. Mounts and hounds are usually only available in the market on Moot. Mercenaries can only rarely be hired here. Unusual specialists cannot be located. We have the picture. We have a key. We have a day encounter and night encounter list. There said Saint Pastry. I could be converted this faith. Yes, though they spell it Saint Pastry. So pronounced about the same, but maybe completely different. We have some box text on the Langshorn Constabulary. Clad in smart red leather armor with goat horn helmets, the guards of the Constabulary are semi-professionals drafted from the ranks of townfolk of eligible age. If word of a crime is called out in the town, 1d3 guards will arrive within 1d10 minutes, 1d3 turns at night. A further 1d3 guards may arrive 10 minutes later, 1d3 turns later at night, if reinforcements are called for. And they are human. They can be of any alignment. They've got some stats. So there is some police. We have some locations. I'm not going to read all the locations. Thinking what's most interesting. Let me see. We've got, how many locations have we got here? We've got 12. So 12, obviously 12 is perfect for a 12-sided die. Now I just have to find a 12-sided die in short order. Oh, and there it is. All right. Here we go. Number 5. We've got, that makes the Hornstoat's Rest, which is an inn. A high-gabled wooden building of overhanging eaves and many-hued lacquered panels. A wide round door topped with a goat's skull welcomes travelers and merrymakers. A white stoat with prominent red horns reclining on a luxurious purple couch. That's the sign. I should have said sign at the front. This creature is a hornstoat, a fairy of local legend which is said to live in the hearts of great oak trees and mock the foolish toiling of humans. So the sign on the inn is the white stoat with prominent red horns. That's on a purple couch. There's a common room, which is a cramped room with high stools crammed against the walls and a cluster of 3 small tables in the center. Guests are served by the landlady, who I'm guessing is Marjorie It actually says it. Marjorie Stallowmead, her 3 sons, and her 12-year-old daughter, Willow, who is notable for having a goat's hoof in place of her left hand. A little hint there. In the late evenings, the tables are often pushed together in the center of the common room and used as an improvised stage for raucous dances or musical performances. The guests are local folk, peddlers, travelers, and merchants. There's a 2 in 6 chance per evening of a beloved Langshorn resident, the sage Farnham Ribblemead, who rents the inn's attic suite on a permanent basis, quietly sharing a glance of Aspintheon with the landlady. The attic suite has a heavy locked door in the inn's upper floor. Wait a minute. Okay, so hold on. The attic suite. A heavy locked door in the inn's upper floor leads via a steep, creaky stairway to a plush attic suite, the home of the sage Farnham Ribblemead. So services you can get at the Hornstoat's Rest. You can get lodgings and food of common quality. You can drink Aspintheon. This is the preferred tipple of the proprietor. Purple Aspintheon is always in stock. Favored guests may also be offered a glass of the rarer and more infamous green Aspintheon. We've got some boxed text on Farnham Ribblemead, who's a sage. He's an elderly gentleman of gangly frame with long white hair, hawkish nose, wide mouth, and stretched angular cheeks. Wears shabby leather traveler's garb and a pair of half-moon spectacles balanced on his nose. He's lawful, and his demeanor is jocular, highbrow, and bumbling. He speaks in a lethargic drawl, and he can speak Woldish, Old Woldish, Liturgic, Caprice, Gaff, Old Drunic, Sylvan, and Drunic. He desires obscure scripts, access to Malbleet's library, said to contain a large body of text in Old Caprice. His knowledge is he specializes in ancient languages and scripts, apply standard rules for hiring a sage, which are not presented here, but exist. Awesome. So it's a lot of nice information, some world building stuff, obviously some angles, since there's a sage there, which means you can potentially hire the sage. And I like that they have, what does he know? What are his desires? The only other things I might want to know are maybe allies and enemies. Who does he love? Who does he like? Who does he hate? Is the fact that he speaks Drunic important? I don't know. Now we get to some hexes. Let's see how many hexes we got here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 hexes. So you know what? Wait, 1, 2, 4. Okay, it is 4. I'm going to roll a die. We got a 4-sider here. Everything's coming up nice, even, nice die sizes for me. Where is a 4-sided die? I need to find one. Damn you, 4-sided die. There you are. Okay, here we go. Number 3. So we're going to read. This is Hex 1309. And you can see here, I really like that they have. So we don't get to see that. We don't have the full hex map, or we don't have a full map, but I think the map that they've given us doesn't have hexes in it. In any case, we see here the surrounding areas with the hex that we're talking about in yellow. So it pops out, but we still get a hint of the surrounding hexes along with the hex numbers, which is nice. So if I need to know where the party is and they're going, and let me see, we can zoom in here a little bit. Whoops. We could see here. Sorry about that. We could see here we're in 1309, and then 1310 is below, and 1209. So we can operate from here and then find those other hexes. This is called Thurligru's Orchard, a bucolic woods decked with artfully trailing ivy. Sheep and swine happily browse the glades. The terrain is its open forest. I don't know. It's open forest with 2 parentheses. I'm not sure what that means. And Aldweald. I'm sure. I guess like an Aldweald. And you can get lost. Lost encounters are in 1 in 6. At the forest edge, in a clearing at the forest edge, right? So right here, in a clearing surrounded by a waist-high stone wall, there sits a tiny orchard. A humble 2-story cottage leaning alarmingly sideways adjoins it. A row of gnarled crabapple trees bearing curious mauve fruits stands at the rear of the orchard. Cider brewed from the crabapples function as Sandor's phantasmal elixir, 1 dose per pint consumed. The orchard is tended and protected by Thurligru Hangman, who serves Castle Breckenwald. The orchard and cottage are the castle's property. Her most significant duty is the provision of crabapples, which she delivers to the Roost, a nearby inn, for onward transit to the castle. Should she catch PCs attempting to pilfer any, she runs to the Roost for help from the staff there. And the Roost is where? There's Castle Brackenridge. We see there's the house. I don't see the Roost. Is the Roost supposed to be nearby? It says a nearby inn, but where? Well, there's, I guess, the road. There's Fern and Bowl House. That's not it. I don't know. We don't. Interestingly, the Roost is not listed here, unless it's supposed to be over here somewhere. But I would have thought it's somewhere close by, because then they take it the rest of the way. Unknown. I don't know if that's deliberate or accidental. A passionate reader, Thurligru has amassed a sizable book collection whose sheer weight causes the cottage to lean toward the side dedicated to her study. Searching the collection for an hour yields 4 arcane scrolls tucked inside a horticultural manual. Decipher, floating disc, mind crystal, and perceive the invisible. Okay, well, here's the Roost. So I guess the Roost is just in the hex. They just didn't feel the need to note it. Half a mile from the orchard. So this is the Roost now. Half a mile from the orchard in an open glade beside Camp Road, which is this road that goes through here. A fantastic treehouse inn is nestled in the boughs of a trio of old beeches. The atmosphere of serenity that permeates the place is enhanced by the gentle cooing of the flocks of tame doves that perch among the inn's gables and the surrounding branches. The sign is of a dove contentedly nibbling hazelnuts from an open hand. The entrance is a sweeping wooden stairway that winds around the largest trunk, or, for the audacious, a pair of rope ladders that dangle from the forest floor. The common room consists of tables and chairs densely clustered around a sweeping circular bar. The landlady, Zomina Ladle, serves with a gang of barmaids. On warm nights, doors are rolled back or drawn back, joining the common room and the outside balcony. Genial flute music wafts. The guests are travelers, merchants and guards, adventurers, and nobles of romantic spirit sometimes sojourn here, taken by the fanciful notion of living in a treehouse. Services at the Roost include food, lodgings and food of common quality, attic suites, which are private suites, each including a small dining room that can be rented for 5 gold pieces a night. There are excellent stables that are located at ground level in the woods behind the inn. We have some other box text on Zomina Ladle, the Roost proprietor, a strapping, energetic woman in her late 30s with plaited red hair and freckled complexion. She dresses in green gowns embroidered with ivy leaf motifs. Her demeanor is neutral. She's bold, spirited, and gregarious. She flits between groups, seldom finishing conversations. Her speech, it's strident, almost operatic, and she speaks woldish. She desires the company of talented musicians. To convince her lover, Thurleglu Hangman, to fake her own death, escape her inherited obligations of Brackenwold, and come live at the inn in secret. Oh, interesting. And then we have some more box text on Thurleglu Hangman herself. A quiet, mousy woman of late youth with wispy hair and a penchant for berets. That's an interesting little quirk. A penchant for berets. Why not? A bunch of French gamers are suddenly pleased. She works for the Dukes of Brackenwold, tending the orchard as a result of a hereditary family punishment that passes to the eldest woman in the extended family. The nature of the crime that her ancestor committed, namely named pettymongery, is long since forgotten. Her demeanor, she's lawful and she's a rustic intellectual. Her speech is halting and sarcastic, and she speaks Woldish and Old Woldish. She desires to continue her quiet job, which gives her time to read from her extensive library. To learn the ultimate destination of her apples, all she has been able to ascertain is that they are spirited by courier to Castle Brackenwold, where they are said to be used to create small but regular quantities of cider for consumption by someone within. So it seems like she might not even know about the magical bits. All right, so there we had Thurlegru's Orchard. So a lot of nice details in there. We have 2 locations, the orchard and the inn. There's a little nice tension there with some individuals there. Not a bad sort of tension. They don't hate each other. There's just tensions there. There's an interesting element with the apples from the orchard. It ties into stuff going on elsewhere. If the PCs were to muck about with this, it certainly would affect relationships or what's going on with the Dukes, the Breckenwald. Was I pronounce that correctly? Right? The Brackenwold. And it's got little things going on, and all nicely done. I like that it's got the labeling there. I like that they've highlighted the hex and put it in a little snapshot of the map at that location. I do wonder why, since the Roost, there are 2 homes here. I guess maybe they're so close that that might be it, because they're only a half mile away. That they don't really register on the 6-mile map. But it is what it is. I might have just stuck another thing here. I don't know. That's just me. But ultimately, I like that you can see the map. You can see this hex in context. It's got a couple of things going on. There's stuff to do just in this one hex that you can get involved with. I like it. It's good. And, is this? Okay, nope, that's a different one. So I'm going to move on ahead. Oh, boy, a bunch of encounter tables. The beasts, horrors, fairies, and mortal folk one may encounter in the wilds. So we have a whole bunch of encounter tables, common encounters. So we have some different encounter types. I'm not going to go through all the tables. I'm just going to go through how they're laid out. So we have encounter types split into daytime and nighttime. This is a table. There's one column for if you're on a road or a track, another column for you're in the wild. That's for daytime. And at nighttime, it's not whether you're on road or off-road, but it's whether you have a fire or no fire, which is a really cool way to divvy that up. So you have different encounters depending, and essentially the difference is that you have the possibility of getting sentient encounters if you have a fire, whereas if you have no fire, you're going to get more monster and more regional encounters. Now, common encounters are things, seems like you're either animals or humans. Oh, wait, no, hold on. How do we know whether they're common or uncommon? So I see here the encounter type, which goes from basically overall, the encounter types are animal, human, monster, sentient, or regional. Now, I don't see there. So we have one side has regional encounters, the other side has common encounters. Regional encounters, I guess, are specific to where you are. I think I get it now, because we saw before that hex we were just in was part of the Aldwild. So then you would roll, if you got a regional encounter, you would roll on this regional chart, whereas otherwise you would just roll on the common one. So I'm guessing if you're on, let's say we're in that hex, it's during the day, we're in the wild, we'd roll a die. If we just got animal, we'd roll on the common animal encounters. Whereas if we rolled regional, we would roll on the Aldwild encounters. That's cool because you get a nice mix of things that are particular to that location and things that are just generic. Hey, Ian, you had to step away. You missed all the secrets. Well, we're still in the secrets somewhat. So, like I said, I'm not going to go through all of these. There's a bunch of encounters. They also have a table, or I'll read this because it's some block text about activity. You can optionally roll a d20 to spark a quick idea about what the creature is doing when you encounter it, and that just gives you a bunch of activities you can roll, a d20's worth. Things like celebrating, chasing, mating or courting, negotiating, whatever. You can figure it out. It's a little bit of an oracle. So not only do you get something like, oh, I rolled up a witch, you can roll to say, oh, what's the witch doing? The witch is patrolling or guarding. And then, of course, you need to think of, well, what are they guarding? And what are they guarding something? Are they guarding something else from something? Whatever it is. What are they doing, right? And now we get to magic weapons. Swords and other weapons imbued with arcane fairy or holy magic. So the weapon type, it's a big table. Well, not a big table. It's a table, D100 table, ranging from arrows to warhammers. We have another table of what kind of enchantment it is, either arcane, fairy, or holy. Also, what are the chances of having a special power? And also, what are the chances of it having a curse? Now, special powers are divided into 3 columns, depending on whether it's arcane, fairy, or holy, and it's a D12. It's got stuff from, accelerating, disintegrating. It's vampiric. It is grows. Those are arcane ones. Fairy ones might be an elf friend, might be a mortal bane, might have moonsight. And then on holy, it could be a chaos bane, it could be a defender, it could be an undead bane, so on and so forth. Let's see. So magic weapons, they have an enchantment. If it's a missile weapon, it loses its enchantment once it's been fired. If it's a magic missile weapon, like a magic bow as opposed to a magic arrow, and if you have magic on both of them, both enchantments apply. So if you fire a magic arrow from a magic bow that grants +4 bonus. So if you fire a magic arrow from a magic bow, it grants a +4 bonus. Presumably that means that maybe there's a +2 bonus on the arrow, +2 bonus on the bow. They both apply, they stack. Cursed weapons. Following the weapon's first use in battle, the wielder comes under its curse and is unwilling to relinquish it or use any other weapon. Curses can only be removed by magic. And the interesting thing there is you're not cursed just by grabbing it. You're cursed after you use it the first time, which is an intriguing idea. So you can have a cursed weapon, you bring it back to town and try to identify it. Now, I don't know in the way these rules are whether you can identify curses, but it's important to note that just by picking it up or taking it out of a treasure hoard, you're not cursed. You're cursed that after that first time that you use it. I'm not going to go through all the special powers and curses. I'll read one of each. So let's see. My eyes alit on holy radiance. Once a day may be commanded to manifest glorious light in a 30-foot radius for 1d4 rounds. Undead within the radiance must save versus hold or be paralyzed for the duration of the light. That's cool. And then, let's see, the curse, how about mirthful? The wielder is prone to levity, laughter, and whimsy, even in the face of grave circumstances. So that one's kind of fun, but I wonder what the mechanical effects of some of these are. It seems like some of the curses have more just kind of role-playing type things, which I guess is fine. Part 7, Monsters. Again, this is a ref-only section. Referees only. Players turn back. Auga, auga. I'm not going to read all these, but I'll probably use 1 or 2. So if you want to be spoiled, if you don't want to be spoiled, turn around now before it's too late. After I read this text here, I'm going to go on to the next page, and then it will be too late. This is a small sampling of the menagerie of weird fairies, fungal monstrosities, sorcerers, magical constructs, restless spirits, pests, and odd animals found in the Dolmen monster book. The Gargoyle and Goblin present Dolmenwood-specific takes on classic creatures of folklore and fantasy. The Root Thing and Yickerwill provide a glimpse into the myriad brand new monsters that lurk in the wild places of Dolmenwood. All right, so you've been warned. Here we go. So it seems like we have 1, 2, 3, 4 monsters. So again, I'm going to use the D4 and I will read one of the 4. So I only really need one example. You can grab the quick start for this preview if you want to read them all. I got 2. You know what? I'm overriding that. I want to read the I really wanted to read the Root Thing. I think I rolled the die because I like to honor randomness, but you know what? I don't want to. I'm sure their goblin is interesting, and it probably would be good to read as a counterpoint to normal goblins, but I want to read something seemingly different. So we're doing the Root Thing. I have overridden the dice. Shall I be cursed for my impertinence? These are sentient humanoid root vegetables, 4 to 10 feet tall, that pull themselves up from the soil to hunt hapless mortals. Root things are eyeless and hunt by scent with a horrid, rasping sniffing. They're a small to large plant that are semi-intelligent and chaotic. They're level 3, have an armor class of 13, have 3d8 hit points. They attack with 2 claws that can both are +2 to hit and do d4 damage and entangle. They have a 30 movement. Their morale is 9, and they're worth 65 experience points. You encounter 1d4. They have no lair. Their behaviors are cunning, bestial, with a ruthless lust to feed. They have no speech. They possess nothing, and they hoard nothing. Entangling. If both claw attacks hit in the same round, the victim becomes entangled in the monster's rooty grasp. An entangled victim automatically suffers 1d4 damage per round and cannot attack. A save versus hold is allowed once per round to escape. Root things are able to bury and unearth themselves completely in the space of 1d4 rounds. An entangled victim who is dragged beneath the earth suffocates for a further 1d4 rounds. As many different kinds of root things exist as kinds of root vegetables are cultivated by mortals. And they have some root types that we can table of. Root things do not have a mouth, instead consuming victims by dragging them beneath the earth to be digested over the following months, entwined in roots, which is pretty cool, but kind of gross. The flesh of a root thing is hearty and delicious. Treat as 2d6 fresh rations per slain root thing, but inspires murder. Yeah. Any who consume the flesh must save versus doom or be compelled to attack the next person they encounter. Oh, that's great. I could see a lot of interesting situations coming up. There's certainly a Sweeney Todd thing you could do with someone, the root thing butcher. That would be good. Ian's never been chased by a carrot before. Yeah, neither have I. We got to count our blessings, Ian. So we have some encounters, 1d4 of them. I'll roll 1 to read one of the encounters. You know what? I put the d4 away. Why do I always do that? I needed it, and I don't have it. Here we go. So encounter 2, we encounter a root thing burrowing into the earth, dragging a screaming child. Oh, that's creepy. And traits, I'm going to need another d6 to roll up a trait. There we go. 6. They have a long, pointy nose. And finally, another d6. What kind of root is this that's dragging a screaming child underground? 4. It's a potato, a cluster of nodules. And that's of medium size, apparently. So a cool, interesting creature. I like the encounters, though you'll quickly run out of those. But still, they can give you ideas. I mean, you'll quickly run out if you encounter a bunch of these. You're probably going to roll through the encounters. But you can use them to sort of riff on, and probably you're not going to encounter them. There's, a ton of things to encounter, so who knows how often those encounters will come up. So probably a D4 might last a while, and you can always just make your own, right? And then I believe we're at the end. So it only took me nearly 3 hours, but we're at the end of the preview. Final thoughts. Do I have any final thoughts? Well, one, I just want to, hats off to Necrotic Gnome for providing so much preview. I mean, can't complain with the amount of preview they're given. A lot of games would rightfully think like, man, do we need to give that much to get the concepts of what's going on here? I mean, they could have given us a lot less and probably gotten the point across. And given how popular Dolmenwood and Old School Essentials is, they probably could have made there. Someone could have made the argument of like, hey man, you don't need to. You could have given like a 1-pager with this cover picture and just one other thing, and you would have sold. People would have been sold on it already. I mean, people were sold on it without ever having to see it. So them putting this together, it's really awesome. It's extremely well laid out. I found a couple of typos maybe, but it's a version 1. It's a preview. It is all good. I think the setting is very interesting. It does fit into the kind of game that I've been vibing with lately, at least on my own game, that kind of has a sort of Arthurian fairy type thing. If you've watched my streams talking about my home game, my home game's not similar to this really, but in some elements there is some, or in some ways in which I could see there's some similarity there. It is certainly a setting that I think I would certainly play in, be interested in. It's got a nice area. I'm curious if they ever talk about what's off the map, so to speak, but it doesn't really matter because, right, the whole concept here is you're coming to this because you want to explore Dolmenwood. You don't want to run off in the other direction. You don't want to act like this knight here and just start running, galloping off the map. Ian says the final product is 800 pages. I didn't read the page count, but phew, there is a lot there. It seems to be all of high quality, well laid out, but laid out in a way that's sensible, that you can, I think, easily read. It seems like there's going to have a lot of content in it. It almost might be content overkill. I mean, I guess I have faith in them. If this was someone else who I hadn't seen their work before, and they're vowing to have 800 pages with 580 this and 576 that, my one feeling might be, are they going to be able to deliver? Are we going to be getting a lot of, this is the purple one, this is the red one, this is the one that's ever so slightly different, because they just run out of creative steam? But I have faith that they're going to deliver. Now, it's not to say that they might not run out of steam when you're delivering so much stuff, but I think I have no choice but to give them the benefit, because I think of what they've delivered so far with everything they said. That's probably going to be a whole lot of great material that's going to be able to last you ages and ages and ages. I don't know how big of a area this is, because I don't know. We don't know with the hexes, but we saw that little hint. And where's Brecken? So Castle Brackenwold is here. Is this hex right here is where I'm guessing is where that orchard is. So given that, there's a good amount of real estate in here of hexes. I think they said somewhere in here, I think they said how much it is exactly, how big it is exactly. Is that right? Did we see? Where does it say? Where is it? Did it say? Where did it say? I thought it said somewhere how much is covered. Characters, no. Welcome to Dolmenwood, no. Adventuring, 7 major factions, 12 settlements, 200 hexes. So yeah, there's plenty. Yep, Ian says 200 hexes, 1 page per hex. So yeah, just the hexes themselves are gonna be 200 pages. So yeah, I think it looks really promising. I want to know from you folks who made it this far. If you made it to the end of this stream, God bless you. And let me know if you plan on backing it. I haven't looked at the levels of the Kickstarter or whatever is involved. Are you backing the whole spiel, or are you piecemealing it? Are you planning to run in Dolmenwood? What interests you most? Is it the setting? Is it the system? Is it both? What do you plan? I'd even love to know if you have ideas what your kind of first campaign will be in Dolmenwood. Let me know all of those things. I have gone on long enough. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'm salty. Everybody, if you could give a thumbs up on your way out, that would be awesome. If you made it to the end of this and you're like, boy, what can I do? What more can one person do to support this channel besides watching all this stuff? If you haven't subscribed to the channel already and you feel like subscribing, that would also be awesome. Otherwise, folks, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Oh my gosh, that was a lot. Game on, everybody. And I will talk to you later. Bye now.